Okay, everybody, we'll get ready to get going. If we could get the room quiet, please. Appreciate it. Okay, we're ready to begin. If we can get the room quiet, please. All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Adam.
Here.
Ganaway. Gibson. Kapler. Kapler.
Here.
Ormsby. Here. Stoltenberg.
Here.
And Lind.
Here. All right, we had minutes from the last meeting.
I'll move for approval of the minutes. I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from June 16th, 2021. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes are approved. All right, review of commission procedure. So welcome, everyone. We see quite a crowd. This might be a record for my tenure here. So we're glad to have you here. I know there's a lot of input that you're willing and able and excited to give us. We are a recommending body, and I'll just clarify that up front. We are a recommending body, not a deciding body. We review the cases and provide a recommendation to the city council, which would then be reviewed and finalized by the city council. So just for perception, there's nothing that will be finalized tonight, but rather recommended for action by the city council. I do have some rules I'll read. We don't always read these, but with a big crowd, I'll just review them so everybody kind of knows how we should play together. So we value the public input, and that's a very true statement. It's our goal to allow ample input from the public while also progressing through the meeting. So we want to hear you, but we don't want to stay till midnight, but we'll see what we do. We ask that those wish to make a comment do so on the agenda items, follow these guidelines. And everything that we have inputted from you all, we'd like to have at the podium to my right and to your left, because then we'll pick you up not only on the audio, but on the video, and you will be part of the record. If you speak from the audience, it takes away from what others can hear, and the background noise muffles the pickups. So everything we'd like to capture there. You will be recognized by the chair. So the normal process is I will first go to the commission for comments on the presentation by staff, and then I will exhaust that interest and comment, and then I will look to the audience and recognize you individually as you kind of put your hand up or wave at me to go back to the podium. I'd like you to state your name and address, and I told you speak from only the podium so we can catch you. Avoid repetitive and previously made comments, and to that extent, we want to hear it all, but if you've got something that the last 12 people said, I'd appreciate if you just said, you know what, I go along with all what the last 12 said, and here's the rest of what I want to add to it. Just reinforce it, just so we don't spend a lot of time going over and over. That would help us both. I really appreciate staying on the agenda. Sometimes we get off topic. I know there's a lot of components to this, but stay on the agenda. If there's something that is important but not on our agenda, we'll let you know, hey, it's not something within the scope of what we can address tonight, and provide you an avenue in which to raise that. I would ask that you address the questions to me rather than directly to the developer, who's also in the room. I saw at least one representative. That way we can kind of maintain order there. And then just in the good, like this is you learned in kindergarten, don't yell, don't use obscenities, or don't threaten anybody. We got a policeman back there that's going to take us away if we do anything bad. So I think we can all accomplish our mission and have a good meeting. And with that, we will begin.
Mr. Chairman, the first case we're discussing is the Meadows, and that is located to the east of the Sartain Horse Farm. We'd already looked at this before, but there is a new design that's proposed. If we go to the next slide, we can then see the new layout. The drives here have been decoupled, some of them, and what we have are some of the units having their own singular drive. The same number of units are present. The other thing that has occurred that has changed is that there are 3 season rooms and decks that have been added to the backs of each of these particular units. If we move to the next slide, we can see that the same outline applies in the final plat. If we go to the next one, what we can see is the coupling of the driveways that was the prior design in almost any one of these except for the triplexes. And the developer, as I mentioned before, has since added the 3 season rooms, the decks, and then has somewhat staggered the drives. On lots 22 and 24 through 24, there will be a requirement that the drives that are on the new plan be made of 6% concrete so that they provide a turnaround. The developer was not able to obtain one from the adjoining property owner. Go to the next slide, we can see that the, beyond that, the landscape plan is going to remain the same. And then we go on to the next one. We see that these are the designs, except the drives are going to be moved in a different manner per the unit layout. In evaluating this, the changes staff looked at felt were not significant enough to deny approval, but they were significant enough in design that they had to go through this process again before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Staff would recommend approval with the conditions listed in the report. I would ask, are there any questions?
All right, great. Thank you, Greg. Mark, anything since publication from your perspective?
Just a little bit of context here. In working with the windmillers on this development, one of their concerns was being able to build what's become popular as outdoor seating, so decks, sunrooms, those type of things, and they needed to orient those so those outdoor amenities weren't back to back, and so this allows them to do a new layout. Operationally, on the public works side, snow removal side, I think we're pretty much netting the same snow storage as we had before, and we still maintain that turnaround area that we talked about previously for lack of a hammerhead.
Okay, thank you. Questions and comments from the commission?
Can you help me understand how having the extra thick concrete driveways provides enough space for the emergency vehicles to turn around?
So we've done this in several subdivisions. Eastbourne Avenue, over in the Wyndham Hills addition that we approved a couple years ago, where we've had issues where the developer is not able to obtain a turnaround easement on the adjacent property. So what we've negotiated with the property owners is that we'll make those driveways as thick as the city street, so that way in this case, it would just be our garbage and recycling trucks can actually back into their driveway and turn around, knowing that that city street will extend in the future.
But as far as emergency vehicles, what if there's cars parked in the driveway?
Yep, so we
How is
have had that
safe?
discussion with them. They would get a one-time notification that on their days, they have to be, the vehicles have to be removed, and if they're not, they will not get their facilities picked up.
Right, so I understand how that makes sense for facilities, but my question was more maybe towards Troy or, fire marshal. How is it safe for the residents?
Yeah, I think, Troy, on this one, we were under the 150-foot requirement for the turnaround.
Yeah, 250 foot is where the distance comes in for the turnaround requirement, so it's not required for public safety at all.
Okay.
So, and I spoke with the developer on it, and they plan to do both streets first because they are over the maximum number allowed for just one entrance, so they plan on doing that as well.
Thank
So
you.
this will all be constructed at one single time. There won't be any phasing on this project, which would trigger the 30-lot requirement.
Makes sense.
All
All
right,
right, thank you.
thanks. Others from the commission regarding this? Nope. All right, anyone in the audience with regard to this matter that would like to provide input? Nope. Okay, back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of case number 21-011, subject to conditions listed in the staff report.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve case 21-011, the Meadows Site Development Plan revised. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thanks, Ann. Same sign. All right, that is recommended for approval. Greg?
The next case involves a request for a coffee shop drive-up to be placed at the corner of Maple Crest Road and Victoria Street. Site is currently a vacant lot. It's on C1 Neighborhood Commercial District, and there's R1 to the north at the high school. It's a portion of a subdivision that is known as Dahl's First Edition, and that is the plat that we've got. The next slide. Lot 2 is already occupied with a dentist office. There had been an original site plan in 1995. This plat was done 1 year later. When we go to the next slide, we can see that there is another office building that had been proposed. Green line designates the boundary between Lot 2 on the right and Lot 1 on the left. The proposed site development plan is showing the site, the stacking, the traffic to come in off of Victoria, and then to cycle around the site. And I believe we have 12 stacking spaces shown here, and then the parking that's necessary for this particular business. There will also be a plat submitted at a future date, but it'll be pretty much an in-house jogging of a boundary on a plat, nothing that would necessarily have to come before this body to actually have the storm sewer within the confines of what was intended for an easement area, so not much in the way of modification. We go to the next slide, we can see that they met the requirements for tree count. You can see on both sides, it's pretty much streetscape, and there's a little bit on the interior. And then if we go to the next slide, we can see the elevations here, looking at the site from the north and then from the south. And then if we go to the next slide, we can see the elevations again, the means of entry and exit, looking from the northwest and then from the southwest, the retaining wall area. Staff in reviewing the proposal would recommend approval with the conditions listed in the report. I would ask, are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Greg, appreciate it. Mark, anything since publication from your perspective?
We did receive a plat of survey today that just corrects the location of that sewer easement.
Okay. Questions or comments from the commission, please?
Roy, just, I guess, one question. I'm all in favor of coffee shops, but I'm wondering about the stacking in the vehicles. We have a site over here in Bettendorf where it extends out to the streets, and we have others, one over on 53rd, that I rarely see cars there. Are we comfortable with the stacking arrangements if this should go out to the street?
Yes, so this does meet our minimum requirement. Additionally, they do have a facility already located in Bettendorf, just across the street here, and so we do have some prior experience, and we have never seen any issue that would even be backing up potentially onto State Street.
Hey, Ann, yeah, we're picking up background noise. Can you mute?
Thank you.
So yes, we're satisfied with it. Thanks, Joe.
Good.
I had gone out and taken a look at that site earlier, and it's extremely low right now. Is it anticipated to fill that substantially?
Yes, there is.
And that water that flows through there now, I see they've got on-site detention back there. It will probably, is that going to be a dry detention back there?
Yes, so the existing detention actually accommodates part of the adjacent lot, so it has to be sized for both this lot and that adjacent lot. So
It
basically,
almost looked like this lot was the detention for the
yeah,
adjacent one. where it
partially
first-
is.
Yeah.
Yes, they're and you can see that's also why they're building a retaining wall along the south side of the parking
Okay.
lot to help with that elevation difference.
Do you guys know where the actual order board and window or order board is? Is that where the building jugs out there a little bit? I'm just trying to get a feel for where you place the order versus where that is in the queue of the 12 cars shown.
The engineer, architect here, is police here.
I'm trying to determine where the order board is, where you would place the order relative to the cars that are shown in the stacking there. Is it that third car in, if you will, where there's a little,
Can you, sir?
can we get you on the mic so we can pick
just
you
come
up?
to the microphone?
Hello.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Casey Moore, owner of PV Land Co. And there'd be approximately 3 to 4 cars between the order kiosk and the order window.
Is that where the little nub is in the building, right there? Can you show Mark or there, or Greg?
He may not see the mark on the map.
It's
We do have.
where there's a little notch in the, right there. Is that about where it would be?
Sorry, I can't see where you're.
It's on the south side.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of on the diagonal.
It's on the narrow side then?
Yeah,
Okay. Just trying to get a feel for the time, the queue question, the timing with, from you place your order to your pickup. So you got, looks like 3 or 4 cars, or is the pickup window at the very north end then?
Yeah, so if you zoom in, Taylor, I'm not sure if you're able to, but yes, the pickup window is at the very north end of the building, so there we'll be able to maximize this.
Okay, that's where I'm going. Thank
Yes.
you. Yep.
Yeah, it's hard to see, but there is a little bump out there
Okay.
on the drawing.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yeah. That's Ann online.
And I apologize if my audio is not good. I'm having trouble sometimes with your reception. So I may be asking a question similar to what Joe asked. I saw there's a patio and picnic tables. I'm wondering if there is a walk-up window. And if there is, how does that interface with the auto traffic? And maybe crossing through the queue line?
So Ann, there is an interior order. So we're kind of back to that discussion that we've had about the typical parking lot layout. Essentially, this is really going to be no different than a Walmart or a Hy-Vee, where you have drive aisles right in front of the building. I think the chance that they're going to have 12 cars stacked up at any given time is pretty low, to where you're going to have any issue navigating between cars. But there is a sidewalk that leads to the interior of the building, that leads to the parking lot. Thankfully, it's on the west side of the building, so you've got almost 9, maybe 10 cars that would have to be stacked up before you're blocking that pedestrian access. And I'm sure that if they needed to, they could probably consider moving it even a hair further north to maximize the spacing.
With the proximity to the high school, I can see maybe even a problem with the people in line interfering with the automobile traffic. So I think all of those things could be, may need management, but it looks like the site is laid out the best way possible to accommodate that traffic.
Yeah, they did add a second pedestrian crossing in coming from the north. I'm going to say most likely specifically for the school, coming right down in there, that would never impact into the stacking space. You may have to wait there for a second or two if you're trying to leave the site, but it would not impact the stacking.
That's a good addition. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Anyone else in the commission?
I'm not sure if I'll come up with a question here or not, but I understand the site. It works from that perspective. I think we're not looking at the car stacking correctly. I think you're, beg to differ with you, Brent. I think in the morning on school days, we're going to have cars out on Maple Crest lining up. Sorry for the parents that are footing the bill for these kids getting coffee, but I think it's going to be packed. If there's any indication, we could look at the coffee shop over by PV, and I've been by there 4 in the afternoon and seen cars out on the street waiting in line. Has anybody been in contact with the school system about this? Now, again, I know the business, we can't stop the business from going in here because it fits. But I know, having had kids that age before, there's going to be a lot of high school kids swinging through there in the morning, which means you got kids going in and out of that parking lot over there, left-hand turns. Has there been a discussion about a traffic light? Has there been any discussions at all about the traffic on Maple Crest?
No, Scott, this site, kind of similar to something we're going to have later, is never going to come close to generating the kind of volumes that would require anything beyond a stop sign there.
And I would agree with you on a full-day perspective, or even a month-over-month perspective, but from about a 30-minute to an hour-and-a-half period twice a day, it's going to be off the charts.
And they do have, they do have to follow code, and code is 6 cars for stacking. They do have 12, so they're double code.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And so, staff's perspective is we can only call balls and strikes. Our code says 6 cars, they're at 12.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we have a lever that we can pull to require them to do more than that, especially when they've already exceeded it. And your concerns, are shared by staff. We understand that busy most busy point of the day, is going to be busy. That will happen.
Like I said, there really wasn't much of a question there. I'm
Yeah.
just kind of stating that from that perspective, I think it's going to be a nightmare a couple times a day, but probably would be if you put it anywhere close to the high school, which we found out at PV.
My kids are all older, and I don't even know how it works today, but is the campus open during the day? Can you leave campus during the day?
I
You know,
think
it's
PV is a
changed even
closed
since
campus and
mine did it.
Bettendorf is an open campus, but it's been a long time since I was in high school, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Not as long as for me.
I got a baby face. I'm older than you think.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else in the commission regarding this? Nope. Anyone in the audience with regard to this case? Okay, come back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of case number 21-055 for approval, subject to staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve case 21-055, Maple Crest Road Site Development Plan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Didn't hear Ann.
She's still
Opposed,
muted.
same sign. Okay, recommended for approval 21-055. Greg?
Our next case involves an area that we had evaluated before for a new location for 3 or 4 businesses. This is going to encompass the same area but closer to the intersection of 18th and 56th Avenue West. The area is currently known as Giefman's 56th Avenue Development Edition. It will be replatted at a future date, but for now, we're looking at the site plan for the eastern portion of this site. Go to the next slide, and we can see that the area outlined in brown is approximately the boundaries that we'll be dealing with for this next project. It's anticipated that there was one building for now for a dentist office, and then that there will be a larger building further to the east of that. The dentist office will be located on the western portion of this parcel, lot number 2. We go to the next slide, we can see the zoning is C2 throughout most of this area, C1 to the north, but this is all under the C2 jurisdiction, so it permits this type of use. Go to the next slide, then we can see it's an office building with the parking build-out. This is what is necessary. The parking does meet the requirement for what is this site for the number of offices inside for the dentist operation. We go to the next slide. This will give you an idea of the elevation, and then the one after that, the next slide will show the perspectives from 4 different directions. And then we go to the landscape plan. We feel that the landscape plan has been met, the requirements for this particular use at this location. Staff, in reviewing the proposal, would support the petitioner's request for approval with the conditions listed in the report. I would ask, are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Greg. Mark, anything since publication?
Not on this one.
No. One little footnote, I love a landscape plan that's in color. It's a little hard to catch the vision when it's in black and white, but questions or comments from the commission on this matter? Pretty straightforward. Nope. Anyone in the audience with regard to this matter? Okay, we'll come back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number 21-056, subject to staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve case 21-056, site development plan on 56th Avenue West. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Case 21-056 is recommended for approval. Greg?
Our next case involves a preliminary plat at the location of Lincoln Road and Kimberly Road, bordering Davenport. The aerial shows an outline in aqua, the 2 parcels that are involved with this locale. Going to the next slide, we look at the zoning map. This site is zoned R3 and has been zoned as such for a number of decades. And we go to the next slide, we see the thought we would have the topo on the map, but we don't have the, oh yes, you can see it, it's in the yellow, but you can see that it's a rather rugged location with the elevations sort of moving from northwest to southeast. We go to the preliminary plat. And with this, we have 26 different attached single-family units, with the lot in the southeast corner being for detention, a wet detention basin. We have a means of approach at a 90-degree angle entering the site, which will be McClellan Court, and that'll come off of Lincoln, the Lincoln Middle Road intersection, so it's angled at a 90-degree angle coming in to match what one might see at an intersection. We also have the, as opposed to the former plan, which went to Crestline, that is no longer in play here. It's one means in, one means out. There are 26 units here, not 30, so the requirement for two means of access are not in play at this time. We also have these aerials here, these photos showing what the proposed housing structure is anticipated to look like, and these are the designs for the duplexes. They're supposed to be 1,700 square feet max for each unit. When we look at this for the density count, 18.48% of the ground is covered with the units. In an R3 district, up to 70% of the ground may be covered by housing units. So the density is not high relative to what it could have been. And this site, of course, as many people at the meeting are aware, no longer incorporates any portion of the city of Davenport, so that also led to the diminishing number of units. Staff, in reviewing this proposal, looked at the zoning that had been in place since as far back as 1971. It's still R3, and it still has the same definition for single and two-family housing. The land use presently is ULI, and the future land use map shows it as urban light intensity as well. The engineering standards have been evaluated by our city engineer. The conservation area or park area is not designated for this location on any land use map, nor has it been in the past. The Iowa DNR nor the Corps have any issues with the site, and they have not had any wetlands designation for the site. There will also be a soil compaction requirement. And also evaluating this, the stormwater issue is going to be channeled or funneled, as it were, controlled by the developer's layout. And in evaluating this for those reasons, staff supports the petitioner's request for approval. I know that our chairman has a number of emails that he may want to go through here at this time. And with that, I would ask, are there any questions?
Thank you, Greg. And Mark, anything in addition to what Greg has noted?
I believe at the dais you do have hard copies of the correspondence that staff has received. It's been numerous, and I think it's been summarized just for the chair's, ability to kind of get it entered into the record.
Yeah, and in the interest of time, I know it was 34 pages of emails, and I have a summary here, and I can just, what our plan is, and if they're available for review, if anybody would like to see the particular emails, and they will all be entered in as part of the record of what's going forward to the council. So we're not leaving anything out by not reading them, but I don't know that in the effort of trying to get done in a reasonable time, in addition to the volume of folks we have here, that we'll miss anything with that. But I will state the people that had submitted, Gail Hoff, these are opposed. I'll do it in two categories, opposed and in favor. The first group opposed, Gail Hoff, The Manor, Paula Teal, 39 Riverview Park Drive, Phil Shubbe, S-H-U-B-B-E, 1309 Pinnacle Pines Court, Matt Johnson, 55 Glenwood Avenue, Davenport, Mark Gray, 1605 Kaufelt Avenue, Greg Gackel, 1106 Kaufelt Avenue, Patricia, and I apologize if I butcher anybody's names, Malland, The Manor, Kelly Rouse, 3437 Mill Road, Davenport, Kirk Vandekar, 1646 Broadlawn Avenue, Diana and James Radenbaugh, 1206 Caulfield Avenue, Sherilyn Barfield and Jill Main, 3327 Middle Road, Davenport, Sherry Volliger, 303 Brown Street, and Amanda Woodruff, 836 Jones Street. Those were the folks that authored emails in opposition to it. We had two in favor, Dick Werner, 1228 Caulfield Avenue, and Reverend David Anderson, The Manor. So again, I have them available. And are there other copies other than what I've got here? Yes, Lisa's nodding her head. So,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, my name's Dick Werner.
Dick, hold on. Anything we got to do is back at the point at the podium.
Okay.
So we're going to follow our protocol. So first I'm going to talk to the group here, and I'll be happy to listen to you when we get done with that. So just go back there and you'll be our first guy, okay?
Very good, thank you.
No problem. Appreciate it. Okay, so we've got the email responses, and I know staff has additional support here. If there's particular questions as we're going through that come up, there's a lot of information they've got regarding the preparation to get to this point. Am I saying that the best way, Mark, as far as your staff work product?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. We do have several exhibits. We have, Greg's presentation as well. So, yep, glad to share.
Okay, good. So I'll start with questions and comments from the commission, please.
I have one question,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. The last comment under the recommended actions, and this is, there's no ingress or egress windows. Is that typical for, in a setback area, you can't do that?
Yep. So it's really the way buildings are being built now. In that building code has now required those to be concreted structures, and the word structures is important there. And because they're part of the structure now, with a ladder to climb out, we consider them part of the structure, and so we consider the setback to begin at the edge of that, or the distance for the measurement of the setback to begin at the edge of that structure now. Where before you used to maybe an older home just had a little tiny window well in the basement, they're much different now. And so don't let that confuse you. That's more to the way building code is now, so that basement windows with the window wells are actual egress and considered part of the structure of the building.
Thank you.
Joe, I would add to that, I think you'll see that as a somewhat standard comment from us for a while we're trying to reinforce that enforcement of that. Nothing necessarily specific to this project or this product, just with the potential that is, as they go through and build these out, that may happen. It tends to happen more in multifamily.
Thank you.
So what you're saying is the entire width or depth of the home or the building has to be
applied.
included with the egress.
Yes.
The egress included within the
Yep.
size of the building, so that you can calculate how much space you have left over for a side yard or
Yeah,
backyard
and
setback.
it's generally
whatever
the
it would
side
be.
yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want, with 7.5-foot setbacks or whatever they may be, we don't want to end up with 2 foot between opposing
The edge of
mirrored
the egress
over
window in the
Yeah.
property
window
line.
wells.
Got
Yep.
ya.
It's more of a function of the change in the code than anything else. It's not really specific to this project.
Yeah, it's good information. Thank you.
Okay, other questions and comments from the commission? Is Ann still with us online? Just curious
I'm
if we
here.
can, okay, just wanted to know if you were there or not. Good.
I've dropped in and out, but I'm here at the moment.
I'll ask a question about, maybe it's the functionality of some aspects of the site plan, and maybe if you can blow up the one you're on, Greg, a little bit and pull it to the south end there. I'm looking at the south end of the cul-de-sac. Right there. Okay, lot 18. One of the concerns I had when looking at this site plan was the number of driveways and the proximity of them to each other and the shared driveways, and in particular, as an example, lot 18, I question whether if someone were to buy that unit, would they be able to have a car sit in their driveway with the pavements that it's shown without blocking their neighbor's access to the drive? It just seems to me that there's some space issues back there that are really problematic as far as the practical use of it. And I'm going to ask Brent some questions too. And on trash day, if there's 26 units and 52 containers out there, and we've got driveways, for example, on lots 21, 20, 19, and 18 altogether, where do people put their garbage cans? And how do we, I mean, we can still pick them up, but when they're
Yeah, we
literally
have-
blocking their driveways.
We do. We have situations like this quite often. We've got it over on Red Fox Road where you've got some really dense
Right.
duplex type cul-de-sacs, and our guys don't have a problem doing it. Ultimately, it's up to the resident to make sure they're placing it where it needs to be, where they can function, and where it's still accessible from our truck. Because there is no parking allowed in the cul-de-sac, so that won't be a problem.
And then as I look at, maybe it's a little hard on this one to see, there was another one I had the picture, maybe it wasn't blocking. It didn't look like the driveway. I'm looking at, it's not that one. On lot 15, yeah, there, it doesn't look like the driveway lines up, or maybe it does, it's just I'm sorry, it's blocked by that 40-foot storm, it does line up. It looked like it was cut off from the building. But that's another one where I'd say, my question is there sufficient space to pull your two cars out and have them sit in your driveway without blocking access to your neighbor?
One thing, if I could offer, Mr. Chairman, is that, staff sees the same concern you have, but we have to evaluate it by the code, and the code says 2 off-street parking places must be required, and those are met by the 2-stall garage. Functionally, we do have the same concern you have, but again, per code, if you provide 2 off-street parking spaces in an interior garage, whether the garage has a 1-foot or a 100-foot length, it still meets code.
And I appreciate that we're meeting code from a parking standpoint, albeit somewhat cumbersome just because it's in a garage. And I'm just, not every day is Super Bowl Sunday, but when somebody has a party and people are over, where do they park and how do people get in and out of their houses? It just seems, although the parking requirements met, it's a challenging layout from a functional standpoint. So that's a subjective concern. Let's keep the chatter down out there, guys, ladies, please, appreciate it. So that would be a concern of mine, just from a layout standpoint, and wondering if there's a way to reconfigure it somewhat to come up with a better ability to flow traffic between the cul-de-sac and the respective unit. It just seems like it'll be a ongoing challenge. That would just be one of my observations. So other questions or comments from the council would be appreciated as well. None?
Roy, I have a question if I can jump in.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to hear from Brent or city staff about any traffic concerns that have been raised and the city's perspective on what those might be or not be.
Yeah, and obviously, I can tell you probably 3/4 of the people in this room are going to bring that up, judging by the basis of the emails. We've responded with the same answer. The ability, the safety to put this traffic, and mind you, it's very little traffic, it projects out 7 units. Folks, we need you to be quiet, please. Okay. It projects out using standard traffic data at about 180 vehicles a day. So that's 26 lots, 7 trips a day. That's an industry standard for senior style living. 180 trips being able to put out through an intersection that is controlled with a traffic signal, as well as what we're going to add is 2 stop signs on the north-south legs, as opposed to what's been suggested by several people is to try to punch this out onto Kimberly Road, which would then be an uncontrolled intersection, which has a lot more conflict points. So that's left turns, people coming down that hill at a good grade, a higher rate of speed. You're going to want to put that traffic from a purely safety standpoint out through an intersection that is controlled by a traffic signal. We can adjust timings. A lot of what the photos and videos that have been sent over, we have to keep in mind that's recent traffic. Locust Street's closed. And I watched the cameras the other day and saw probably 6 out of every 8 vehicles that were heading south or north on Kimberly, we're cutting through this neighborhood. But again, Locust Street is closed. So they're ignoring the posted detours and they're using this as a cut through right now. I went back and watched traffic data from May, where we still have cameras. I watched, so May, school's in session, so that's gonna be your most dense time. You got in the range of, I think the most I saw was 6, maybe 7 cars stacked up there, but our queue cleared it every time. And we have actually a really long queue because of that on the Lincoln Road leg. I had my traffic technician look up that split, and it's about a 40-60 split between Lincoln and Kimberly. So we still have the ability to lengthen that and adjust it. Thankfully, we've only got one other traffic signal that's nearby that we have to work around. You know, you don't have that to the south. So there's ways to adjust the signals if we think so. But again, it's, and this will probably come up again, just kind of preempt it, the need for a traffic study. You know, the city has a standard, the Iowa DOT has a standard when you require it, and it's based off projected traffic. So we have 26 lots here. And again, I said to use the 7 trips a day. That's an industry standard. It's by the Institute for Transportation Engineers called ITE, their trip generation. That doesn't come close. It has to have a minimum of 500 vehicles to require a traffic study. So, Ann, if that answers some of your questions.
I would say, Brent, that answers all of my questions. And I know there's been information shared with residents in that area at some of the meetings that you've had. I wasn't able to attend those. But it sounds to me like the traffic issue has been, you addressed it very thoroughly, Brett, and I feel very satisfied with your answer, and that alleviates any concerns I would have about traffic. Thank you.
And just for perspective, for the audience benefit as well, my objective here, as far as addressing the different topics, is there's themes, I'll say it that way, in the emails that we've received, and I'm sure there'll be themes, as we noted, traffic safety was one of them here. So my goal is to make sure that we address, through the course of our interaction here, each of these general themes. And if the particular one has not been addressed, by all means, raise it. But for example, with traffic, rather than go through the whole traffic study and everything, I think as it comes up and we look to staff to address it, we'll say, here's what's been researched and concluded based against the evidence and comments we get back, just so everybody's heard both sides of everything. That's our goal tonight, is make sure there's as much delineation, communication of the facts behind how staff has gotten to their conclusions, and I'll try and make sure we keep the theme focused on each of these emails so we don't miss any of those, okay? So anyone else on staff before I go to the audience?
The developer doesn't need to answer right now. I'm sure he's going to be at the mic at some point. But one thing I'm sure will be another theme is the trees and the amount of trees that can be saved along the west and the south of the property. At some point, if that could be addressed, I'm sure somebody in the audience is going to bring that up also. But
Yeah, we
I'll want to
can,
hear about that at some point.
okay?
You had mentioned, Greg, in your staff report that at one point, at an earlier version, they had a connection through to Crestline
Yes.
Drive. Do you know why that was eliminated? I mean, if it could potentially.
Number of units was reduced. What we're looking at is in the fire code, you have to have 30. If you have 30 or more units, and that was because of Davenport, there was one way in from Lincoln, and then that necessitated the connection to Crestline. There are 26 units right now.
So you're just saying it's not necessary for them to connect to Crestline Drive? Although maybe it would help alleviate some of the traffic concerns. What do you think, Brent?
So, Janessa, we discussed that at length when the initial project was submitted and included both Davenport and Bettendorf components, so between city staffs. And one of our initial comments was, knowing that basically 90% of the adjacent properties are located in Davenport and those streets are, we settled as staff that we would not allow that connection without prior approval from Davenport.
Okay.
And then the project changed it to the point that it was located only in Bettendorf, so it never actually got to that level of request to the city of Davenport. But we did have that in an initial condition.
With your discussions with Davenport, what was their response to the idea of connecting to Crestline?
It varied from city staff to the city leadership from what we heard. In general, the thought was that it was not preferred. But the fire code would have mandated that second access point if there were that many lots.
If
At
there
this
were
point,
30,
it
right?
does not.
At 30, yeah.
Well, and this is anecdotal, but I would almost anticipate more of a traffic pinch at Lincoln Avenue as a result of that being connected, because you're going to have you would have a lot of the folks on those streets cutting through, trying to get the intersection, and instead of taking that somewhat convoluted way to get out to Lincoln and Kimberly, they would cut through and maybe even
Punch this through.
pinch that intersection more, frankly. But it's not on the table, but at least we know that that was there at one time and relative to the count of units. So other questions and comments from staff? Nope. All right, we're to the audience, and you're first up.
Thank you. My name's Richard Werner. I live on 1228 Kofelt Avenue. Lived there for 23 years. I wrote my alderman that when this second plat came out, that I thought it was an improvement over the first one, which I thought was abominable. And I admit that my email to him was not intended to be all-inclusive. Because I mentioned that it was an improvement doesn't mean that I was necessarily in favor of it. I still find serious deficiencies in the plat as it's presented today. One of it being the density compared to the surrounding neighborhood. Most of the lots in our neighborhood are 15,000 square feet. These duplex units nowhere come close to that. The only negative thing that I had mentioned in my email was that I regretted the fact that the development of it cuts in half the wildlife corridor between Duck Creek and an area between Riverview Park Drive and Kimberly. Another issue that I failed to elaborate on is that the topography that is such that in looking at it, it's very difficult to see what the gradients are in the elevation of the land, and it's very steep over there. And some of those lots might be very suitable for mountain goats, but I don't see where they would be very suitable for any domiciles. We have had incidences on Riverview Park Drive where houses have lost their footing and needed to be replaced because of the gradient of the slope. And I'm wondering whether there has been any kind of a civil engineering study of the soil in that area, considering the slopes that they're dealing with, that would keep the houses in place once they were built. I could go on and on, but I don't want to dominate anything here, but I just wanted to change my categorization
Okay.
of approving versus disapproving to the former category, in that I still disapprove it, even though I considered this one a big improvement over what the first plan was.
Okay, appreciate that
Thank you very
clarification.
much.
Yeah, thanks for your input. Okay, who's next? I see a hand there. Yes, sir. Well, we'll take the gentleman first and then the lady. He raised his hand first.
My name is Phil Shuby. I live at 1309 Pinnacle Pines Court. And I would like to get clarity on what the traffic signage is at the entrance and exit of the development. So where would stop signs propose to be or stop lights?
And I'm looking at Brent, and he's going to fill us in just
Yeah,
a
so
second.
Stop signs would be located on the north and south sides of, and the roads get a little screwy there, so bear with me with the names.
Can you point to it?
Taylor, can you show? On we're stopping traffic on McClellan Court and then Middle Road / Lincoln Road as it comes north. So there you go. So north and south traffic would be stopped. East-west traffic, basically westbound, coming in from the traffic light would always free flow so that you never have a backup onto Kimberly Road.
So there'd be a stop sign coming out of the development?
Yes.
And then another one as you're
To
coming?
stop the former 90-degree curve, correct. So it will be a true T intersection, but it will be a two-way stop there.
Okay. All right. I'd like to get also clarity on, in the staff report on this Lot B, or let me back up. I think it's very misleading to say that this is oriented towards seniors. What I interpret it as is that it will be capable for people that are 20 years old to seniors, not just seniors. All right, so I think there'll be younger people that are going to live there also, okay? So to say that it's just for seniors, to me, is misleading, okay? So my next question is, this Lot B, and in the staff report, it says, will be ground necessary for a future street connection to McClellan Court for the undeveloped ground at 3437 Mill Road, which is in Davenport. And I understood that that was undevelopable at this point. So why would there be a street connection to that? Am I misunderstanding something?
I don't know where you got that it was undevelopable. They just chose not to bring it into this development, the parcel in Davenport.
But we have to preserve the access
But
to
we're
the-
preserving, yeah, exactly. We can't landlock that parcel. So all, Taylor, you can't really see it on there. Basically, our standard 52-foot right-of-way, the way the streets line up, leave about 10 feet between the west right-of-way line of McClellan Court and the property line. So they're just making that an outlot that has a blanket access easement, so that way if that property ever was to submit for development in Davenport, they would have access onto McClellan Court.
So topographical issues were never a reason to not develop in Davenport?
Davenport has their full set of zoning ordinances. We
No,
didn't
I mean
review
from the
those.
developer.
Oh, yeah, I guess you'd have to ask that.
I think technically we try to pose questions to the chair. The
Yeah,
commission
so,
really go-
so I'll ask the question, can you restate yours so I've got it right for Mr. Dolan? I saw one of the Dolans here somewhere. Yeah, so can you again restate your question?
So it wasn't stopped because of topographical issues, or it was?
And then if I could get you at the mic too, you bet.
Let's stay back there.
No, it was not. The issues pertaining to the parcel in Davenport related primarily to the geometry of the lot lines. We had originally planned on 10 lots on that parcel. Upon staff review, rearranging the lot lines would have meant reducing that to approximately 6, at which point it was no longer economically viable.
Okay, thank you. Further questions, Phil?
Yep, two more. One is I'd like to understand the size of the proposed berm behind. Is that a 1-foot berm, 5-foot? What does it look like?
Do we have the engineer here?
Yeah, I believe he's
Mike
here.
was here.
Where's Mike?
I'm Mike Janisek with Martin and Whitaker, a licensed engineer. That berm's kind of still up in the air. I guess I don't have a total determination how exactly, but it is required within that 35-foot setback along Kimberly. There will be a landscape berm there. I need to sit down with Kevin to finalize that, and it may or may not be on the north side too. I think we still are talking through the final details. This is the preliminary plat, you know.
I believe our minimum is 3 feet for a landscaping berm.
And the berm is required so that the setback can be 35 feet. So the berm allows the 35-foot setback. Without the berm, it would be 50-foot setback.
So you're able to reduce the setback by building
Yep.
up a berm?
Yep, that's a recent change that council made to city code.
And that was be due to the difference between the R3 and R1, is that correct? Is that why we did
I
the
think it
berming?
applied from
No.
R3 to R5 only, along an arterial or collector.
Yep.
So we've only applied it twice now, I think, since that change. And actually, Mr. Dolan's project on Tanglefoot had that same condition on there.
So will the berm be a buffer to avoid the backs of some of the residences?
That's the intent, yes. The berm, a fully landscaped berm. I think if you want to see a good example of it, you could check out their project that they're building right now in Tanglefoot. That berm's probably a little larger, Mike, than what you're going to end up with here, but it is, they've recently completed about half of it, and it does have arborvitae, evergreen trees that are spaced pretty tightly, so
Okay.
that is the intent.
All right, I'll go quickly. My final one, and I don't know who would be or wouldn't be responsible, but I would recommend that, can you go back to where the stop signs are going to be? There presently is no sidewalk to walk towards Middle Road. So when you come out of the development and want to go north, there is no sidewalk there to connect to Middle Road. There is a sidewalk on the east-west part of Middle Road, but there is not on the north-south part. And I recommend, so that someone can walk to the village, that there be a sidewalk there.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I don't think that's something that we could do, that we could say at this point, yes, because that resident actually lives in Davenport, so we'd have to have the discussion with them, because they'll have to maintain it, but it's something we'll talk about at staff.
Okay, thank you. Hey, and go ahead and go up to the podium, and can I pause you for just a second, because I'm going to get right to you. Richard, you had mentioned a question about, where's Richard? There he is, about density. You had noted density, and I'll just address that real quick, too. Just for perspective, I think they're in an R1 zone in their zoning, aren't they, in their neighborhood?
Most likely R1 or R2. in the
R1 or
surrounding, but
R2.
We have the map.
And there's different density formulas for different zoning districts. So this is and has been for quite some time an R3 zone. So the allowable density is greater than what would be typically found in an R1 or R2. And they had noted in the discussions, I believe the number was about 17%, was it, Greg?
It was
compared to
18.48%.
18.48%.
Floor area ratio, yeah.
Floor area ratio, so density on the lot against a 70% allowable. So it's less than a third of the current density as proposed is less than a third of what the code would allow in that particular zone.
Mr.
Just so
Chairman,
you know.
I would add to that analysis, there's two ways we do density analysis, floor area ratios and also per square foot, if you will. So floor area ratio counts the vertical structure. Just doing units per square foot is another way we do it. We have both in code. Max build out, and this is a little bit of a pretend number because it doesn't include any right of way or anything like that. But at this lot, which is nominally 5.7 acres, you could technically, again, no right of way consideration or anything, do over 100 units. And what's being proposed here is 26 units. And if you do the math on that, that's 1,675 square feet per unit. So technically, on a per unit basis, it is similar to the single-family homes on the square footage per unit.
Okay, good point.
Because you have a 5-acre lot with a lot of green space,
And-
over 5-acre lot.
And I did note that it was listed as 5.49 acres. When I looked at the Scott County website, it calls the site 4.6.
I made the same mistake when talking with staff
two
today. There's
parcels.
2 parcels there. You got to add both of them together.
Okay, I'm missing okay.
Yeah, you
Because
can see
it
it.
was under
Taylor's
one
showing it.
Great minds
ownership,
think alike.
then divided into 3 separate interests, all in the same.
See, Taylor's got
It's
it up on
all
the
of
screen
that.
there.
Yeah,
All
it's
right,
both
I
of
couldn't
those,
get
yep.
the acreage to tie, so thank you. All right, yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. My name is Kimberly Scully. I live at 1309 Kofeld Avenue, and my concern is for the area's stormwater. Presently, Kofeld Avenue has no stormwater removal system. Rainwater entered our basement this year and in past years. We paid out of our pocket for our home to be equipped with a French drain system. When average to heavy rainfall occurs, our system dumps the rainfall out onto our property on a north embankment, eventually flowing into the ravine where the proposed housing plan is located. Rain that falls outside of our system impacts the neighborhood. One, filling up a gap under Cofelt Avenue, which has been measured to be approximately 2 to 3 feet deep. Last year, a section of Cofelt Avenue, Davenport, collapsed, and it had to be repaired. After the street fills up, now that it's fixed, rainwater runs through our yards and into the ravine. The Dolan project is proposing a retention pond. The ravine is a retention pond. Has the city of Bettendorf evaluated, and if not, plan to evaluate the stormwater impact on this ravine? Proposed new homes and Slavens Manor. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it, Kimberly. Brent, any
Yeah,
additional
absolutely.
information
So
on that? Yeah.
The stormwater designs obviously have to meet our city standards. Those were updated in 2016 after not being updated for almost 20 years. So they are the most current. They match the current Iowa state standards. Essentially, this water is running through this ravine undetained now. So while it might be sheeting off the higher areas quicker, it's causing a problem down below because it's going to erode. You can see if you take a walk down there, we've got 2 or 3 storm culverts that are trying to collect that now without any true shaping or grading that's taking place down in the lower area. So they have to collect all of their stormwater, take that into the new stormwater, the new sewer system, that they're constructing on the street, which will then pipe to the detention basin, and then that water has to be stored there. So it's basically, like a bathtub, picture it. That water's gonna fill up and be slowly controlled out of the site. So it can't leave the site any faster than it's going now. They are picking up all of the off-site drainage that's coming from the west. They've got 2 storm culverts that are picking up. Taylor, if you wanna pull over and see if you can highlight. Got one. Yeah, just between those. So that's the Southern Crest Line. There's just north of there, there's a storm culvert that's gonna pick up the runoff coming from the adjacent undeveloped Davenport parcel or the single-family parcel there. Gonna take that into their storm sewer system, get all that water into this. So it's a controlled release. It's a much better product than what is sitting there right now because it's not being controlled whatsoever right now. In terms of the questions on Cofelt, I believe it was from Ms. Scully, had an email. We had our sewer crews go out there and check. There were no issues with our sewer crews. There are some voids under the street. Unfortunately, a lot of these streets in this era were poured directly on dirt. So it's not surprising that you're going to have some voids under there. That portion of Cofelt in Bettendorf is rated very poorly according to our pavement management system down to Riverview Park Drive. It'll most likely be reconstructed in the next couple of years. It's getting very close to that threshold. And again, the voids unfortunately aren't uncommon. They're not related. I can say the voids aren't related to the ravine. The voids are related to the way the roads were built when they were initially done. There's no rock underneath there. There's no subdrain, and there's no storm sewer. So really separate issues. I realize they're adjacent to each other, but the drainage is splitting through there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Could I just add something?
Sure.
That I think might, edify the commission, if you will. Taylor, could you pull up that drainage map just to show how the drainage in this area is working and what this system would do would be. Yep, so everything, I'm a little far away, my glasses are just at their max potential there. So everything to the north of that red line is actually flowing to Duck Creek. So north of that red line is actually flowing away from this site.
That's the Continental Divide right there.
If you will, that's the drainage
Okay.
divide. So there may be a perception by the commissioners or others that there's water coming downhill from several blocks away, when really it is just one block. So I thought that might be interesting for you to see here.
Yeah,
And then adding infrastructure, to Brent's point, should control the drainage better.
Yeah,
not
the
worse.
off-site drainage area is not nearly as large as you would think, just being out there and thinking that potentially it comes from Locust. Most of that actually heads north. That's also the reason, some of the original emails I know we received, asking if this was a true waterway or waters of the U.S. The reason it's most likely not is because it's really isolated. It does not have much of a drainage area upstream of it, and downstream, you're not at a creek or stream, you're at a road.
You're almost
So
at the
that's why it's
headwaters,
really-
if you will, of the flow of the
Yep.
water here. There's very little above you coming down at this
Yep.
point. That's pretty graphic there. Yeah, thanks.
Brent, are you saying that's why it's not considered a jurisdictional wetland by the DA?
That was part of it, yes, because of the drainage area is so small.
That's determined by the Corps of Engineers, not staff.
Right.
Okay. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Sylvie Summers, and I live at 3032 East 18th Street, Davenport, which is just a few blocks from this. And I need to say that I can't even count on two hands how many times there have been road closures on Locust, East 18th, and Middle Road, which affects the traffic pattern every month. So that's one issue that I know that in a perfect world, the traffic patterns work out all right, but it's been pretty consistent that they haven't in my recent perspective. And also, I have been a union electrician for 35 years, and we work off the code, and there are minimum codes that we follow, but they're minimum. I have never done, well, I can't say never, I'm sorry. I most likely do not install electrical to the minimum. I go above because I know things change. I know we'll need more power. I know we'll need more, in this case, drainage maybe, more room for traffic, more room for parking. So I think I need to point out to everyone that a minimum code is just that. It's the bare minimum. So it's been brought up several times about minimum codes. So I just wanted to say, you need to go above and beyond a little more than that. And also, my last note is that it's 26 places, so there will be a minimum of more than likely 52 vehicles, and that's people living there, not visitors, not kids, if kids are involved, or grandkids. Another point to take into this account. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. So let me, before I take my next person, I'm going to just ask Chris, because I think it's an important topic, concept to address is the minimum. And we have a standard as our review perspective that it's regarding lawfulness. And the standard, the minimum, sets that bar. And Chris can say it more eloquently, but I think it's important to give him a minute just to give us some perspective on the legal standard that creates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it is a good point, and one that that our commission and ultimately our council, who will be the ultimate deciding body, will take into account. One thing to just remember, and we've talked about this in this group and at council in a number of settings, is that a P&Z or city council has two different types of decisions. They have got legislative decisions, and they have quasi-judicial decisions where they are acting as a judge, and judges are applying the facts to the law. So in this is a quasi-judicial decision. They're not making law, they are interpreting the law. In this case, the applicable law is the Iowa Code, Chapter 354 on subdivisions, and Title 12 of our city ordinance, which incorporates the applicable section of Iowa law, which is really a balancing test. So what 354.8 does is it basically says planning and zoning, when they are deciding whether to recommend approval or not approval, and then ultimately city council, they look at three things. Does the subdivision conform to our comprehensive plan, which was last adopted in 2017, and it's sort of the broad strokes guiding document for a lot of land use decisions. Doesn't get granular, the big picture. Next, the deciding body gives consideration to the burden on public improvements, a lot of what we've talked about here, stormwater, streets, that sort of thing. And then there's a balancing test, and that's where I think the minimum standards comes into play, because the balancing test takes into account the owner of the property, the future purchasers of these homes in this proposed subdivision, and the public interest, the neighbors, the city as a whole. But it's a balancing test, and the minimum standards of you know, how much parking there is, minimum standards of any number of things that our code does address, those are minimum, and then those are taken into account as with this balancing test. So the balancing test is done not by staff. Staff basically looks at it, and in their recommendation for approval, or to recommend approval or not, does it meet our code? And in this case, it does meet our code, but then it's the deciding body that does this balancing test. One thing that the Supreme Court has said in interpreting this is that these decisions cannot be made on a whim. So while there might be, you do take in, it's somewhat subjective, this balancing test, but it does need to be based on fact. It needs to be based on things that are tangible in some form or fashion. It's not just a whim. That's the language from the Supreme Court. So if that's helpful, if it needs clarity, I can give it. But it's not just, does it meet minimum standards and rubber stamp it as approved. There is a balancing test, and that's codified, and it's been interpreted by our courts.
We're going to let him go to the mic, and then I'm going to take the lady in the reddish color, so go ahead.
Sure. My name's Brent Rouse. My wife and I own the property at 3437 Middle Road, or as you guys all know, as Lot B. We were part of the initial Dolan project, but he has since terminated that contract. I can tell you, and I'll agree with the other gentleman that was up here earlier, I definitely like this plan a lot better than what was pitched to us in order to get us to sell our property. Originally, we were told 3-story side-by-side townhomes, what was it, 18 units per acre, much resembling the ones next to Tanglewood up on Devil's Glen. So you can imagine my concern of having all these 3-story side-by-side townhomes overlooking my property, which also keeps being, noted as undeveloped land. I call it my backyard. I can also say that I disagree with the traffic information that's going around here. Can we scroll up a little bit to the drive? That drive right to the left of that entrance is my driveway and my property. That is currently a shared driveway with a single home residence that has 2 vehicles. Now, on peak times, even with, I'll agree, Locust has been diverted and has been coming through there. I believe that's all cleared up now. But even during peak traffic times during the day, that backs up all the way around that corner. I know, I live there, I have to deal with it. I often have to wait to exit my driveway. I often have to wait to enter my driveway. And that is if people are courteous enough to give me a gap to do so. Now you're adding 26 homes next to my property. Let's just say conservatively, 50% of those have multiple vehicles. That's 40 plus cars. I'm now going to have to compete with 40 additional cars to exit my driveway? And how is that going to affect the traffic at this light? You got 30 or 40 feet from that drive to that light. You're telling me we're not going to have a backup there? I deal with it today without the additional 40 cars. On top of that, my concerns are obviously the drainage. That valley, all the runoff from the neighborhood around, runs through my valley. So if we have any blockage on this new development, my concern is that's all going to back up onto my property, and I'm going to lose dry, usable land. I'm also concerned that the excavation going on along that property line there, that property line there is currently filled with trees and brush and provides a nice barrier from that other area on the Bettendorf side. I own all that. That's mine. With all this excavation going on this other side, is somebody going to assure me that that's not going to kill off that whole tree line? And if it does, and that all dies and falls on my property, who's going to bear the expense and the burden of removing that? I really think that this project, don't get me wrong, I like this plan much better, and actually I might have changed my mind. I've since bought a house in Bettendorf. I now own 2 homes. pay taxes in both. And if this plan was originally presented to me, I may not have bought the second house. I bought that second house based on the information I had available to me at the time, that this was most likely going to get approved. And it didn't. I'll bear some of the responsibility myself. But it's been backed out of. Now I have to try to sell a home next to this new development that's going to have a shared driveway with 40 other plus cars on a backed up street in a 40-foot stretch at a stoplight. I mean, my question is why are we developing this here anyways? There's plenty of... There's plenty of available land in East Bettendorf right now waiting for development, new construction all over the place, and we're looking to develop this project here. Why? Why? My assumption is it's about profitability. He's getting the land for cheap. You're going to pack a bunch of homes in there. Who cares about the residents and the other taxpayers around? I understand there's a border right there between Bettendorf and Davenport, but we're still Bettendorf's neighbors. We still all pay tax revenue into the area. A lot of people in that area have invested significant dollars into buying and purchasing those homes, the upkeep, the revenues generated in the community, the tax revenue, etc. This project makes no sense. You said it earlier, this is the highest attendance. You said it earlier, this is the highest attendance you've seen in your tenure here. That should tell you guys something. This project is not wanted. And it's really not really that great of a project in the first place, if you ask me. So that's my piece, but I can tell you I have major concerns. I border this thing. I'm going to take the brunt of the impact of this. And I got serious concerns. I would like answers. That traffic study is wrong. I live there, I know. I deal with it day to day. So,
Brent, can I ask you, what was the proposed? Just so I've got perspective, what was the proposed development looking like when you said yes to selling?
originally, we were told and sold on the fact that it was going to be 3-story, side-by-side townhomes, much like up by Tanglewood. That was the original pitched to us. Rentals, the whole 9 yards. I mean, I really think it was just a picture that was painted to get us to sell our property, to add it to this project. And ultimately, it didn't go through, so now, you know, we're, again, no regard to us, right? Sorry. I mean, I'll take some of the responsibility. I could have waited till the deal was done before making a purchase, but anybody dealing with this real estate market today knows property is selling the same day it's listed. I talked to Kevin Dolan prior to making an offer on my new house, asked him how it was going, what the timeline looked like, and at that time, everything was positive. We were looking at a late August, early September close on the property at hand. So I went ahead and made an offer on the new house because I didn't want to be put in a position to where we'd have to sell that house and not have anywhere to go. So I'll take responsibility for that. I can handle it. We'll get it sold. We'll do what we need to do. But I just don't think this project as a whole is the right project for this space. I just don't. It's going to affect so much, as you can see, of the surrounding community that I don't think it's worth it, in my opinion.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Okay. Next.
Carolyn Brown, 3440 Crestline Drive. I live behind the greenhouse. My property is on the Davenport-Bettendorf border at the dead end of Crestline Drive. With the proposed Dolan Homes cottages at McClellan Heights, the east side border of my house would be shared with 4 newly developed lots. I'm extremely concerned about the damage that may occur to my property as the land adjacent is prepared for development. There is a steep drop-off that begins at the edge of my property. Currently, this is stable because there are many trees and native bushes and plants which provide a barrier to erosion. My attached garage and driveway are only several feet from the drop into the ravine. I request that the city engineer inspect my property and its proximity to the ravine to assure me that the construction of homes and the water loop to Crestline Drive do not result in damage, or that any accepted proposal include a wide easement where portions of the ravine remain, or any other suggestions that the city engineer may have to ensure that the side of my property continues to remain stable. I've attended meetings with Kevin Dolan, and so far he has not been able to sufficiently answer questions about grading and drainage. I am concerned that if the properties or lots are graded higher than mine, drainage problems will occur. Nearly half of my home's living area is located in my basement, which is carpeted and finished. I am incredibly concerned that the proposal does not attend closely enough to proper sewage and drainage plans in order to prevent flooding and damage in my home. The foundation of my home is waterproofed and stable, but the grading and construction, changes in topography, and the removal of trees and plants could compromise its stability and drainage. I purchased this property in October 2019 and improved it with several renovations before moving in March of 2020. A large part of why I purchased this home was the privacy and the noise reduction that the woods provide. I enjoy looking out my kitchen window at the birds, foxes, and deer of the ravine. The destruction of the ravine will negatively affect the property value of my home and my enjoyment of it. But the greater issues are that of my house's foundation and erosion problems caused by tree removal, the grading of the ravine, and the building on backfill land. Any related issues should not be expenses that I should have to incur, as they would be brought on solely because of the new development. Thank you for your time and consideration of my request.
Thank you, Carolyn, appreciate it. Brent, can you please address a couple of things I heard. One is the stability of the grade and the impact of brush removal and other activity on the adjoining site.
Yeah, in terms of the property line, legally, obviously, ma'am, they cannot touch your property. They cannot grade off their property. Unfortunately, that is not something the city can enforce. We cannot get in, and Chris can verify this, we can't be involved, tailor that plan, in property line disputes. I will say the grading plan that he just is about to bring up here, this is their proposed grading plan. They are basically mimicking the exact same slope that you have right off your property line. They are not increasing the height. I would actually be worried about the 2 homes or the 4 homes that sit lower than crest line. Those are going to be kind of difficult. My guess is, and Mike, I think you're probably going to comment on that, they're going to end up with some landscape walls to help flatten that slope when they go to build those 2 units. So, so her house, Taylor, is that property right there.
Yep.
Those contour lines, the solid lines that you're seeing are every 1 foot. They are matching almost identically to the dash lines, which is what that grade is right now. When they build those 2 homes there, I can almost, Mike, do you want to comment on most likely how those will the final grading will go?
Sure. I'm Mike Janisek, Martin and Whitaker. That's a 3-to-1 slope going down like Brent was talking about. It's like 20 foot a drop. The homes up above, it would take Noah's flood to get to them. So they're totally high and dry. Crest line, the water coming down crest line, we're installing storm sewer to pick that water up to keep the water from those 4 new lots. But yeah, they're going to be a lot lower. That slope, chances are there will be some kind of landscape wall in the backyards of those 4 homes west of the proposed cul-de-sac. So those are challenging lots, and we have a solution, and we feel it's a good solution. So we're about to submit the final plans to the city engineer so he can review and approve, the final grading and all the drainage, and we feel like we've got a good solution. So I think we've addressed all those comments, but I'm happy to answer any
Yeah, so
others, if I didn't answer those questions.
Sir?
Ho-
Sir, so you're saying now instead of looking at trees, they'll be looking at a wall?
No, the wall's down below. You won't see the wall. The wall's gonna be like 15 feet below you. You won't even see the wall. The high side will be towards you. The low side is the backyards of those 4 houses. You won't see, it'll just be a 3-to-1 slope going down, and then there'll be a retaining wall, like at the back of their patio, so they have a backyard.
You'll be removing all the trees.
The trees within the grading limits will be removed. Some of the stuff on the west side, like in the area of that drainage way north of Crestline, some of that won't be removed, but, the trees help sell. We're gonna minimize the removal, but obviously, majority of the property is being graded, so there'll be, some trees removed as part of the project.
So will there be dirt coming up to my lot?
Your property won't be disturbed, but they'll be grading right up to the property line. The trees will be removed that are within those grading limits.
And let me just add for a minute, and it comes up a lot, and I just want to help again understand part of the why and the what in the whole process. So I completely understand your perspective on the trees and maintaining the view and the nice nature and the birds. That's all great stuff. Conversely, the developer who's buying the property has certain rights in that property, and it's not fair that you all say, well, we get to keep what we've got, even though it belongs to or would belong to the developer. We can do what we want with our property, but he can't do what's legally and lawful for him to do on his property. And that's part of the dilemma here. He has rights just as you guys do. So what we're here to do is make sure that he's developing within the things that are permitted in the city code, even though it may not feel too good when you're out there. He's got rights in his property just like you guys do, and we're trying to balance that so that it's properly developed within the code and make sure it fits everything that's legal. And it's an ongoing dilemma, but it's the reality.
I think it's an excellent point. I mean, it's one that is, when I was talking about the balancing test, the owner of the property is one of the parties that, whose interests are balanced. And this property, as was stated before, has been R3 since 1971. It's not zoned urban reserve or park, in which case there would, it would remain wooded. But this is zoned with the ability to develop. So I think that needs to be remembered.
Yeah. Okay, yes, sir.
Hi, I have unit number 1111 at the Manor, and it's a ground floor unit. If the Manor was a boat, I would be at the bow of the boat. So I'm concerned about the water. Now, at the bottom, the southern end of your lot, what is that? Is that a ditch or is it a berm? The grading?
That's a ditch.
It's a ditch? Who's going to have access to maintain that ditch?
The property owners have to maintain their section through there.
That will be their responsibility. And how deep is that?
Oh,
Is it like 3 feet deep, that
about 2
ditch?
feet. About 2 feet.
2 foot deep. And just from the cul-de-sac down to there, that's about a 20-foot drop, am I right?
From the cul-de-sac to where, sir?
To the end of the lot, that's like a 20-foot drop.
No, because they're changing all the grade. You have 4 foot, 5 foot, because they're raising that they're filling that area and bringing that cul-de-sac up.
But, yeah, okay, so that's going to be a ditch, and that's going to drain towards, in a direction towards the drainage pond, but not into the pond.
No, into the pond. That carries that water into the pond.
Into the pond, okay.
Yes.
I would like to see, if I had any input, I'd like to see that done in concrete with the grates on it, because all that material on the backside of those houses are going to run down towards that. And it would, once that fills in with dirt, it won't take much to fill that in with dirt. It'll wash.
Well, that'll all be stabilized, sir. They have to sod across that and stabilize the lot per our city code. So that won't be an open ditch like a ravine. That'll be a swale in their backyard.
And from the top of the lot to the bottom, is that about 45 feet? from the very north end of the
I
lot?
couldn't tell you. I don't have a distance on that.
That's a lot of drop from top to bottom. I work for the city of Davenport in the street department.
It's 100, the lots are 110 foot deep.
Yeah. But it's a lot of, right now, she has no water problem. We have no water problem in our lot, in that area down there in the manor. A little bit, but. At the manor? Oh, well, we've never had water in my daughter's unit that she's in right now. And I'm scared that once this gets developed, because almost 50% of that's gonna have runoff. But if you count all the roofs and driveways and the streets and the sidewalks, and that's a lot of runoff coming all at one time.
Yeah, but again, that's all being detained in that retention pond. So
Yeah.
The fronts of those units, if they're a typical unit or a lot that splits front to back or center to back, the front half, the pitch of the roof is going to all be the front yard taken to the street, which then goes to the storm sewer, which then goes to the pond. The backyards, if there's a little bit of runoff there, that's where it's controlled in that ditch and piped out and around, all again to the retention basin.
I've also ran snowplow trucks for the city, and that concerns me that catch basins where they're located. I understand that the water will try to drain over that way, but boy, I've plowed snow when there was 8 inches of snow, and the next day it rained. And you got 2 catch basins, and one above the cul-de-sac and one not even at the bottom of the cul-de-sac. And I feel sorry for the people in the bottom 2 houses down there, even with that. Because once you plow a windrow all the way around, you're going to cover up the catch basins anyway. And even if you come down there with a snowplow, when it's icy, you almost probably have to back out of that thing to get out of there and spread salt as you back out. It's going to be a difficult one to keep clean in the wintertime, but that's Bettendorf's problem now. I've been retired 9 years, so I don't have to worry about that. But it's just, I see too much runoff coming down there, and I'd like to see a better way of the owners, their responsibility to keep only 2 foot of runoff coming off there is not feasible to me. And there's no access in there to get to it, to keep it dug out. So if I notice it's full, and who do I call? The resident to come dig out their ditch, or do I call the city of Bettendorf?
Well, again, why would it be full? So
It's
if
a
you have,
swale,
if you have
right?
a yard and it's grass, where's it going to fill up with dirt from?
Everything from uphill goes downhill.
That water, not dirt, sir. So again,
There's always, I've seen it from.
So if you have hold on, folks. So if they build those 6 lots there, those 6 homes, and they sod
Come on,
all
guys.
of the green space, where is the dirt going to come from if there is no exposed dirt?
There'll always be there'll be leaves, and there's going to be debris coming downhill.
I'm sorry, sir. I disagree with you on that.
Well,
I have that exact swale in my backyard, and every yard next to us, again, is stabilized.
From a
So it's all got
50-foot drop,
sod.
from one top of the hill to the bottom, it's a 50-foot drop. There's a lot of water coming down.
Not anymore,
Water
sir.
always carries dirt.
Sir, like I said, not anymore. They have changed all the grading of the road. Anything that's in the road is going to the pond. It's being piped to the
Yeah,
pond.
but even around the side and from the streets from Davenport. Okay.
Just don't agree,
I think
sir.
I can
So that's
help.
the
That's
difference.
fine. If you don't want to listen to people, just say you don't want to listen.
That's not okay.
Nope, we're going to stay in order. We're not going to get mouthy, and if you do, we're going to take you out.
Yeah, you guys get to
No,
do what you want.
no.
We don't say.
No, we're going to keep the order, and if you don't keep the order, we'll ask you to leave. We're being nice and polite and working through, and mouthing off is not going to work. So follow the order, and we'll be in good shape. Okay?
Hi. I'm Gail Hoff. I live in the manor also, in the same building that my neighbor was just speaking about. If you could put up the picture that shows the trees, the photograph of the, yeah. Okay, so if you look at the green outline, thank you for making it, and bring it up a little bit. Okay, so in the bottom right-hand corner is the manor condominium complex, and I live in building 11 that you're pointing to there. And as you see that green line go across, you see where it meets the corner of our complex. And you see kind of a bright white square rectangular place there. Okay, so for 60 years, the people of the manor and Slavin's Manor before that had an agreement with the gentleman and the family that lived in the land that's for sale. Under that agreement, we maintained that land, we mowed it, we plowed it, we used it for gardening, we took care of it. About 6 months ago, they gave us the okay, the owners of the land, to put in the new parking slab at a price of $7,500 that we paid. Now, we're being told that this land that we've taken care of for all of these years is going to be sold, and where that little triangle is there will most likely be where the water detention pond is going to be. So we're not only losing land that we've taken care of and theoretically we should own, but because of the gentleman that owned the land previously, we won't get into his problems, but he wanted us to pay him several thousands and thousands of dollars for this little square of land, which we didn't do, but we did continue to maintain it. So that's my first concern is we've paid for this parking slab. Now, is it going to be destroyed? We're going to have a water detention pond in our, the end of our building. And, what can we do about it? We had thought that possibly we would be grandfathered in to own that piece of land, but we haven't heard anything to that extent. Also, you talk about not being able to come off of Kimberly Road. Well, if you look right there on Kimberly Road, there is a place to turn into a medical building, and there would be a place to turn into the subdivision. Of course, it would mean you'd lose some of your houses that you want to build there, but there is already a break in the road. There's already turn lanes, and so that would be a way to get in and out if you wanted to go ahead with the Kimberly Road. That would give you another exit. Of course, it would take away some of the homes that are going to be built. Anyway, would the people from the manor here raise their hands? As you can tell, we're a very concerned community, and so it would be devastating to us to have to probably look up to the houses that are going to be built there because of the way the grading's going to be, and we're going to lose. I know the wildlife isn't important, but it is to us. So please consider not doing this. And if anyone else from the manor wants to speak, come on up.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Hey, Roy, can I make
Yep.
a comment? I was just thinking, Brent, about your discussion with the last gentleman, and I wonder if maybe there was a little bit of clarification we could do that would help. As far as you were talking about it being an area that's stabilized, the retention pond being stabilized and not being dirt. So stabilization means, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that it's green. It's a green space, so it's grass, right?
Yeah, so I think that what the gentleman was referring to was stabilization and silting in of the ditch along the south property line. And so we have what's called a COSESCO ordinance. That's a grading and erosion control ordinance. So every individual lot here has to apply for a permit once Dolan pulls a building permit. To close out that permit, that lot has to be stabilized, which means it either has to be sodded or have grass seed, and then until the growth is established, if it's grass seed, we will not close out that permit. So if in that interim, let's say, Kevin, I think you can maybe speak to this. I doubt you're going to seed any of these. I'm guessing you're going to sod everything. So if they're going to sod it, it's instant. That's instant stabilization. If they were going to seed it, if there was siltation that happened while that seed was germinating, they still have to correct that before we will close out that permit. So all of basically everywhere you see on that drawing that's not shaded dark is going to end up sodded, aside from maybe a little bit along the northwest corner there where they're not disturbing. So I guess my point, sir, was that I don't see how anything coming off those lots, if it's all sodded, could silt in.
And my reason for bringing that was I just thought maybe it'd be, like you said, it'd
Sure.
be helpful for him to understand that that's how we stabilize that's how builders stabilize when they're creating, new homes, is by going through the Coesco permit, and that makes it so you don't have the mud and water runoff that creates a really big problem. So hopefully that helps.
So I have to go back.
Your concern.
Yeah, but let's have him go first because he's up there already, and then you can come back up if you'd like to. Go ahead, sir.
Hi. My name's Kevin Hamilton. I live on Riverview Park Drive. I've only lived in Bettendorf about 3 years. Well, 4 years, I guess. And, it's very common, I've seen in city governments and different places where I've lived, to talk about facts and figures and development and taxes and cash flow and all kinds of things like that. And occasionally somebody brings up subjectivity and balance. And so my question is this. There seems to be a preponderance of this throughout the world where people don't really look at balance realistically. And here's my thought. In situations that I work with people, I always try to find a win-win situation if it's a one-on-one basis. I always try to find something that's going to benefit them and it's going to benefit me as well, and there's going to be mutual beneficence. So in this situation, I see three elements. I see win, win, lose. What I'm trying to suggest here, and I'm trying to suggest it to Mr. Dolan as well, and to the Bettendorf Council and the people who make the decisions. If there are a bunch of people who really are opposed to this, and it's really, really uncomfortable, surely couldn't we find some balance where we could make it a win-win-win situation? Now, maybe that means not having the development. Maybe it means Mr. Dolan does something nice for the city of Bettendorf and turns it into a green space. Maybe. Now, what I'm just saying is, I hope that you will take into consideration a win-win-win situation for the people of Bettendorf, for the council of Bettendorf, and for Mr. Dolan. We're all people here who like to make a living and we like to make money. There comes a point where you ask how much is enough. But the point being this: if you can make it a win-win-win situation and look at it and maybe extend your thinking a little farther. Now, I don't have any definite proposals other than the fact that the gentleman did speak about there are many other areas in Bettendorf that can be developed and that will help your tax base. This is a meeting that you said was a record meeting. That should say something, like this gentleman said. It should say something. So I hope that'll be taken into consideration. One other thing, somebody brought up to me, they said I-74 is not finished yet. And when that is finished, that's going to change the traffic patterns in here pretty radically. So that's my piece. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Haley Jones. I live at 1605 Coffelt Avenue. Thank you for coming this evening and for having to sit through all of this. I am one of the properties that backs up directly to this new development. So if you see, I am right there. You can kind of see the pool in the backyard. So I am right on the edge. Yes, right there. I am right on the edge of the new development. And one of my main concerns, like everyone else, is the ravine. And it's such a complex topography that I understand that there's going to be a lot of grading that is going to be taking place. It just seems like it's a lot to do for this sort of property. And Dolan has been quoted that he delivers high-quality homes that are not only a great place to live, but will also enhance the surrounding community, both in terms of appearance and property value. So we, as a neighborhood, really like our unique uniqueness about our neighborhood. If you drive through our neighborhood, every house is different. We have wood siding, we have brick homes, we have houses with actual siding. Everything is so unique about our homes. The lot size is large, okay? We have these big, gorgeous trees in our neighborhoods. We obviously don't care about the trees, but our neighborhood has a uniqueness to it that the city should, I would think, cherish. It contributes to our region by offering that unique standpoint, and I think it gives our neighborhood somewhere special. So why are we choosing to take away this special area that provides uniqueness to the city when there are a lot of other places that we could develop? Now, I understand it's a piece of land for sale. We, of course, can develop it. People can buy it, do whatever they want. But I think that there should be some consideration taken place to the uniqueness that this piece of property adds to our community. And then another thing about the property being aimed towards senior living, me being a young person, if I want to get into the Bettendorf School District for my children, I can't afford those $800,000 homes right now. A $450,000 home, I'm going to go for it. So I'm going to have friends over. Where are they going to park? Or if my parents move in there and I want to go over and spend Christmas with them, how am I supposed to park and visit them? So concerns also with the parking and whatnot. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, who's next? We'll let the young lady here coming up, and then you'll be next, okay?
Hi, I'm Nancy McCluskey. I live at the Manor. I currently have a sinking foundation problem. I'm wondering where the outlet for this detention pond is going to be and where that water is going to go when it leaves the pond.
So the
Nancy-
outlet,
Nancy, could you clarify, where in the manor are you? Are you at the very end, or where?
I'm at 703.
Can you just put a dot on the map, kind of show us where in the unit, just for,
Down lower. It's off the map.
oh, farther down?
The clubhouse is right there at the very, very bottom. I'm the second unit up from that,
Okay.
right there.
Yep, good. That's what I wanted to get a feel for where you're at.
Okay. So we had water in the basement at that unit from mid-January until about 2 weeks ago. And that's the cause of the sinking foundation. I want to know if this is going to resolve my water problems or if it's going to add to my water problems.
Don't know, but can I ask you, do you have any idea where the water that's in your basement is coming from?
Down from okay, so there's a standing pond right above where that white parking pad is, right. There's standing water there, and it's moving underground, clearly, because it's not coming across the top of the surface and getting into the basement. It's
So is it coming up through your floor? Is that what you're saying?
It's coming into the basement from 7 different points of entry, both from under my slab, from the west and from the east.
And how about all the people up gradient from you? They don't have issues, but you do?
There's water in the basement in building, 900?
just let me.
Also, out my back door in our parking lot, we recently had some asphalt work done. They dug out an area that was sinking and put in fresh asphalt. And 4 of us stood there after they dug that out and watched groundwater fill the hole to overflowing.
Okay.
Okay,
Good,
so
yeah.
there's groundwater issues there, and I want to know if this retention pond is going to resolve our problem or add to our problem.
Go ahead, Brent.
There is no reason, ma'am, that it would add to your problem. Your house, according to this grading plan, our aerial topography, sits somewhere in the range of 10 to 12 feet lower than the lowest point of the Dolan property. So Kevin, Taylor, if you could go down to that corner, you've got an elevation, ma'am, if you're down at the bottom of that unit,
640.
640-ish, yes, and, you're in the 652 range, so, 8 to 10 feet lower. That outlet from that pond will go directly to the city storm sewer.
Okay.
There is
I
one
think
change
that may even help alleviate some of my
It
issues.
should absolutely help. I can't accommodate, or I shouldn't say, I can't tell you if the groundwater issues, we don't have records of that kind of thing without doing soil borings to know where that might be coming from. But any of the water that comes off that ditch currently, like I said, there's 2 open culverts that are down at the bottom of that catch everything that, hopefully, that it can get through there. On a big storm, I'm sure it doesn't. And then it most likely overtops and runs right down your guys' parking lot. They have to accommodate all that, so it has to be sized for a 100-year storm event. With any potential overflow would have to go onto Kimberly Road, not directed onto you guys. So this should absolutely alleviate any surface runoff. The groundwater, I really can't tell you, especially since they're so much higher than your end of the building. But the pipe will go directly toward the city storm sewer.
Okay. Thank you.
That does need to get adjusted.
Okay, yes, sir.
So Mark, I didn't get your email to the end of the day. I offered it.
Oh, I can make copies for you if you want. You already made copies? Yep.
You can just hand it to the commission. I'm Sean Liddell, 1651 Broadlawn. And I just wanted to maybe piggyback on the speaker. I forget her name, but a couple speakers ago with the pool. Speaking of, the real asset to the neighborhood that this woodland ravine is. And I know Mark, Brent, it's been made clear by Chris that city staff is more concerned about measurements and setbacks and making sure lots are within the very minimum of the code, and most of them are at the minimum. But luckily, we have a planning and zoning board, and we have a city council, and we have a comprehensive plan that Chris mentioned as well. So for those that aren't on planning and zoning, real quick, the comprehensive plan called Premiering Bettendorf is the foundational document that guides city decisions for planning and zoning. And this is all from the plan itself. The plan presents a shared vision of the future, guidance for decision makers, city staff, planning and zoning commission, city council, and other city boards and commissions as they set policy, make public investments, and deliberate land use decisions, and a legal basis for land use regulations. City code requires the zoning ordinance of Bettendorf to be consistent with the city's comprehensive development plan. Premiering Bettendorf, Chapter 1. The top 2 recommended actions from Chapter 1 are preserve sensitive natural areas from development using the development suitability map, Figure 1.3 in the comprehensive plan. Promote natural stormwater management by promoting best management practices on individual sites and subdivisions. So Figure 1.3 identifies sensitive environmental areas such as floodplains, drainage ways, and wetlands that should be conserved and incorporated into a natural stormwater management system. What I requested to be able to be displayed here was a blow-up of that plan, but that is Figure 1.3. And if you actually blew up that plan to the proposed development area, it would bleed. It's all red for the most part. Red, development not recommended or may be prohibited, wetlands, floodplains, Major considerations, red, should be preserved from development. Includes drainage ways, 100-year floodplains, wetlands, and the steepest slopes. It also goes on to say, while the suitability map provides general guidance, each development should undergo a detailed environmental analysis to determine how to address environmental concerns. Exceptions to the preservation requirement, which the city has already set on this lot through their sustainability map, exceptions to the preservation requirement should be limited to rare cases where the developer can show through a detailed environmental analysis that development will not create undue negative environmental effects. I don't know if you as a commission have seen that or not, but according to your comprehensive plan, I think you need to.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, would you
Yep.
want staff to provide any information on the comprehensive plan and how it relates?
Well, sure, let's
Analysis?
discuss that.
Sure. I didn't know if there was another speaker you would call or not.
What? She'll pause for a minute.
Okay, thank you. I like people who are interested in comprehensive plans, so first of all, I just want to thank Sean for reading our comprehensive plan, although sometimes we may have different opinions on it. It's a piece of work I'm proud.
Yeah, your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, I'll start over. First of all, I really like comprehensive plans. I think they're really neat parts of our democracy as a city, and so I appreciate Sean reading it and his input very much. There are parts of his analysis that I disagree with, but I would say that it is important as a city that we look at environmental areas. In our analysis as staff, we did do that. We did actually require the developer to check with the Corps of Engineers on the jurisdictional wetland situation, which is not found to be there. So the commission should know, and I believe if you didn't get a copy of that in the packet, we do have a email correspondence from the Corps saying there are no jurisdictional wetlands on this site. Another thing we did in our analysis of the environment is a little bit look at the historical geography, and if I can nerd out just a little bit, because these are the kind of things that really make me excited, I would like to pull up some maps from the 1930s through today's date, just showing that this area has over time been used in different ways, from farming. This is a 1930s map, so you see the topography there is quite flat compared to what we have now. If you want to scroll up to the 50s, again, still undeveloped, but not nearly quite as wooded. Going to the 1960s, it's been clear cut at this point for the most part. You do see the manor come in. So, yep, that's the manor condos. Thank you. You do see those come in the 60s, and in the 70s, also kept quite clear, looking like mainly farming going on. So again, not a historical wetland. Not being used as a wetland, not a park, a farm. Go ahead to the 1980s. Again, the 1980s, some of the vegetation is coming back. And then you see the current state really start to begin around the 1990s. And that's probably in relation to whatever that owner chose to do or not do with that land. They chose to let it go fallow. They chose to no longer harvest the trees or whatever they were doing. So there may be when you walk up to a piece of property, you may see it as something, but the historical geography will tell you what it's been over time. And this property's been many things in many conditions over time. And I think that's important as a geographer, which I am, to understand. I want to share that history with the commissioners.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And hey, I just pulled up too, and I don't have a way to share it. Maybe Taylor or Greg can pull it up, but I looked up the Iowa flood map, and there is no flood zone area or any category of concern anywhere near there. The closest area of flood concern would be up at Duck Creek in the vicinity of
That's correct.
The restaurant up there and the nail salon and all those. and the golf course, that's a high flood zone. If you look at ifis.iowafloodcenter.org is the website, and it's very interactive. And there's absolutely nothing in the area of this particular lot regarding flood zone or floodway or flood risk.
That's correct. If I can further on, just if you will entertain me just one more second, I would like to point out, can you pull up that LiDAR? So when you look at LiDAR, this is lasers shooting topography, right? When you, the PDF that's part of the comprehensive plan is not granular. The comprehensive plan is large scale, okay? But this is granular data. And when you look at it through LiDAR, we have no wetlands, we have no floodplain, and the LiDAR slope shows much less slope than you might anticipate by looking at that very large scale map. So when you get down to the macro, remember this plan, Premiering Bettendorf, is a large scale plan. When you get down to the macro, start looking at the specific site, and you see the LiDAR, you see the slope is not what you might anticipate it to be from looking at that other PDF version of the map from the plan. And then I would point out the plan is the beginning, it is not the end. And all of our land use decisions are really based on a continuum. And that continuum starts, in this case, in 2015, 2016, we worked on the comprehensive plan. We had public input. They named areas for urban reserve. They named areas for parks. They pointed out areas for development, for industrial. While we, in part of the analysis, at a macro level, we talked about areas to preserve. At a specific level, in the future land use map, we did not, we as a city, and I wasn't here then, so this is not my work, but I'm speaking to it. We as a city did not create a future land use map that showed this property as urban reserve or park or some other type of green space. So if I could just show our future land use map and then show our parks plan map next, that would, I think, answer staff's analysis to much of what Mr. Liddell, sorry, Sean, Mr. Liddell did present, and I think he presented very eloquently, and I do appreciate his work. I have a slightly different analysis. So if we could show. Future land use map and kind of give them a little zoom into the area. Oh, you. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. It's okay. We're really putting Taylor through the.
There we go. That's our future land use map.
So the future land use map, and this is probably the most important piece of paper in our comprehensive plan, because it is from this that future land use decisions and possible rezonings, not in play here, must come. So if you had to pick the most important page in a comprehensive plan, it would be this. It does show urban light. It does not show green space. It is currently a green space, but the future land use map does not contemplate it as such. And that's supported by city policy. So subsequent or in tandem to this, the city adopted a parks plan. In that parks plan, this area is not shown as proposed acquisition for park space. So that's the analysis we did. Usually, I don't bring all these to the commission for a more pedestrian case. Maybe that's a bad term. But for this audience, I wanted to make sure you and the commission and the audience understood the level of analysis we did, which was in depth. Aside from the fact of having the developer contact the appropriate federal authorities regarding wetlands.
Okay. Sean, did you have any?
Yeah, I just wanted to say to Mark, Mark and I have known each other for a while. I was a commissioner on the Bi-State Regional Commission in my capacity as an alderman for the city of Moline for 5 years before we moved across the river. I do respectfully disagree. I think figure 1.3 is important. I think if you read the analysis that many months, if not a couple of years, went into specific to the suitability map, you will probably have some pretty serious concerns. I know I did. I'm not, I think the floodplain is a red herring. I'm not saying it is been designated as a floodplain, but that's 1/4 of the criteria that went into the sustainability map. The map was created by weighing a significance of various environmental features, and those included drainage ways and steep slopes, both of which fit in this area. So it is, in my opinion, the purview of this commission as well as the city council to think outside the box, and you have city staff to verify your measurements, that's for sure. I'm sure your charter is not to check to see if city staff verified the lot widths, all right? So you do have a lot more ability to make the best decision for the community than I think you're being given credit for. So thank you again, and appreciate the time.
Yep, thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Yes, sir. What, the lady, and then you can follow her up, all right? Great, thank you. Yes, ma'am, you're on.
All right, Sean's a tough act to follow. Thanks, Sean. That's awesome. My name is Lisa, my husband Dan, and I live Riverview Park Drive. Grew up on a 140-year century farm. We moved over to Riverview Park Drive in this area about 1.5 years ago from Windsor Meadows in Davenport. It too was on a valley. My in-laws live over in Windham Hills, Tanglefoot area. So when we talk about, I would say in totality, I know I don't have numbers to speak or topographic charts, Sean and the others, but just my 2 cents. You know, I feel like we're kind of running a Chris Farley here, all right? Big man in a little coat. It just does not make sense. 140-year century farm, culverts out of the wazoo, okay? We are talking about, again, you can get into emotions, all those things, but what makes sense? We're, I think, taking the I-74 bridge opportunity here. I know it's taken folks probably a lot of legwork. Engineering, I've got an engineering background, not so much civil and structural. We can talk about balances. You know, what makes sense, what doesn't. We've got property rights, you know, with real estate, and then we've got property owners. When a land is up for sale, it's up for sale, okay? I get that. But what makes sense? You were talking about a major, major valley. I mean, I think the folks here, the number that have showed up tonight, really speak to, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, if you want to put in like a few townhomes here, like this guy has been promised, you know, your upper builds, that makes sense. There's like 2 or 3 properties right there. You could do that, but going down into that trench, holy cannoli moly. I wouldn't even go there with your brick walls. It doesn't even make sense. We have 3 kids. I'll tell you right now, with that one side being shut down on Locust, maybe just in the interim, they go to St. Paul, they go to Assumption. I drive my daughter to Assumption 3 mornings a week. She has to be there by 7 a.m. for weightlifting. During the school year, 7:45 a.m., they have to be in their seats between St. Paul and Assumption. Locust is, I've seen so many accidents. When you add to that, sorry if I'm too much information here, okay, but I live and breathe it every day. When you're coming out on there, it is so dang hard to even get out. I have to go all the way down to McKinley just to be able to get out, just to be able to catch a breather, a break. Dual working parents. And if I gotta travel all that stuff, I mean, you name it. This is not, again, like, I think it's a, you know, what we've I think looked at probably the last 2 or 3 years is this opportunity with the new I-74 bridge. We got a piece of land up for sale. Man, you are gonna have so much traffic congestion, it's not even funny. So many great folks losing their peace of mind. We're not talking about elderly retirement people, okay? My neighbor directly across the street from me, she could beat anybody at a game of golf like no other. Probably more active than I am. Go out towards TBK, Wyndham Hills, where my in-laws live, Tanglefoot, name it. But come on. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Hi. My name's Jay Draymond. I live in the city of Davenport, but my property is less than 200 feet from this proposed housing tract. I live on Broadlawn Avenue in Davenport. I wanted to comment on a couple of things. I think Sean Liddell raises one of the three issues that I think are incredibly important here tonight. We talk about zoning issues. And to me, it's the picking and choosing of which parts of the zoning language, the minimum zoning language, that we're going to pay attention to, and which parts we're going to ignore. And which metrics we use and throw them out there with no one challenging it, and which metrics are just, some of which are just absolutely false. So I don't want to repeat what Sean was talking about, but I just want to address something that Mark Hunt said, which was, or the implication he gave, that somehow the suitability map and the underlying reasons for it have somehow magically changed because they didn't amend the updated version of the city plan and the comprehensive plan to address that particular area. Oh, we forgot to do it. No one said that Mr. Liddell was referring to it as a park. So no, it wouldn't be on the park map. He's talking about a map that is a suitability map for development, and it's in the red zone. And you can say whatever you want about floodplains. There are many issues that are called out, and that's only one of them. And it talks about floodways, by the way, and drainage ways, not floodplains. And I heard, I want to go back to a metric here. I want to leave this topic for a minute. I want to go to metric. Someone forwarded an email to me from a Mr. Farber. I don't know Mr. Farber, but I was interested in the email, and it was, I think it was with the city engineer, but I'm not sure. And he was asking, why is there no traffic study being mandated here? And the answer was the same metric we heard tonight, the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and they create the standard for these kind of metrics, and they call out variety of types of housing and what the ins and outs, and the trip generation manual is what he's talking about. But then we depart reality, because you're applying a metric that has no business being brought into this room. This is not senior housing. It's not senior housing by the city's definition, and it's not senior housing especially by the ITE's definition. Now, the ITE doesn't give broad definitions of senior housing, but they call out senior housing into 5 categories, and I'm not going to get into all of them here. But the only one, and there are things like assisted living, there are things like congregate care, but the only one that relates remotely to this project would be senior single-family homes. But the one thing all those 5 categories have in common is age restriction. They are senior housing. And at every public meeting where Mr. Dolan is speaking, it's a matter of, I'm putting in raised toilets, and it's low entries and few steps, and it's not senior housing. I live in a true cottage there, and if I put in a raised toilet, and I have an entrance that has no stairs, that doesn't make my house senior housing. So to use a metric of 7 ins and outs per day per unit is nonsense. 182 actually is what it is total, but that's nonsense. This is not senior housing, so why are we using that metric? Now, I'm not saying that was intentionally done, I'm just saying it's too easy to go gliding down this road and say, this is what it is. No, it's not. It's not senior housing. And even Mr. Dolan doesn't call it senior housing. It is general single-family units with some senior accessible amenities in them. That's what this is. And in fact, this is the same project, Mr. Dolan refers to it as product, that he builds all over. And all over, when you go to those developments, it's not seniors that live there. Overwhelmingly, it is millennials, because they are, it's just as there she is, the young lady mentioned before. Those are the people, they're now in their peak home buying years. And that's a huge part of what's driving this hot real estate economy right now in the Quad Cities, particularly in Bettendorf, which is why he wants to build there. So this is not senior housing. The people who are buying this product are predominantly not seniors, and to say it's going to be only 7 ins and outs per unit per day is ridiculous. And based on that, they're saying not only does he not have to do a traffic study, but also based on that, we're making calculations about a road that is barely 40 feet wide, with no parking restrictions, with 2 tight hairpin turns and no sidewalks. And by the way, this nonsense that the road closure on Locust is what's driving the backup there, I'm telling you, I don't care how many engineers you parade up here, we live here, we see it every day. People that live directly in front of it are telling you this is nonsense. It piles up because there's a traffic signal there and people are using the area as a cut through, and it's piling up there. And that's exactly what it is. It was doing that long before this road closure. And anyway, the road closure is affecting the traffic coming the opposite direction down there, not heading out. It's been shown, it's been paraded up here that there's no way we can we can't punch out to, I think was there, we can't punch out to Kimberly. There's no way to do it safely. And yet a resident of the manor came up here and said, by the way, there's turn lanes right there. You have access to other developments and a break in the road where you could clearly do it, or he could clearly do it if he wanted to go through the expense of that. But he won't do that for the reason that was mentioned. It's because he doesn't want to take up developable property on this lot, because then the project won't pencil out. That's what's going on here. I asked Mr. Dolan myself at the public informational meeting. I asked him, I said, how many of your other projects empty out onto, have an entrance and exit on a tiny side street? And he thought for a minute, and he said, well, one. And I said, which one was that? What is that? And he said, it's, I believe he said Ridgeway, I believe. So being somewhat unfamiliar with that area, I took a spin over there. That stretch of Ridgeway, each lane is wider than the entire street there. And that's the only one. All the rest empty out into major streets. He's not doing it here because the project won't pencil out. And lastly, I want to talk about this nonsense of the Army Corps of Engineers and what it means. Because again, the notions are being floated out here without explanation. They come out and they survey the lot. And they don't say, oh, okay, this is non-jurisdictional, you get a gold star, Mr. Dolan, go ahead, build, there's no problems. They don't do that. They don't get involved in that. They make a determination under the U.S. Waterways Navigation Act as to whether this wetland, and it is a wetland, by the way, and they determined it to be a wetland, but they determined it to be a non-jurisdictional wetland, which simply means that it doesn't fall under the federal government's purview per the U.S. Waterways Act. And so Mr. Dolan doesn't have to go through the process of permitting with the federal government. That doesn't mean it's okay. It doesn't mean there's no issue with drainage or flooding. It doesn't mean any of that. My last comment to you is this. I don't know whether this collection of sort of misnomers that are being floated out there is just accidental. I think it is. I believe it to be. I want to believe it to be because this is my neighborhood and you're part of our local government. I mean, I live in the city of Davenport, but you are part of my local government. You're my neighbors. And this is the most available form of representation most of us in this audience will ever be able to participate in. The most available form of representation. You can't just look, and this is to electeds too, you can't just look at the bare minimums here and say we're satisfying the law. Because you have a constituency, even though you're not elected, you still have a constituency, and you're looking at part of it right now, and you have not just a responsibility, you have an obligation to look at what is on the ground, not just what is on a map generated by staff. And the fact that staff has approved this already doesn't mean that you're required to or that you should. In fact, I would suggest, I would recommend, and I hope you go with this. These folks are asking you to stand up for them. They're asking you to stand up for something. They're asking you to stand up for something when standing up for something isn't necessarily easy, but you are their recourse. You're not going to destroy Mr. Dolan's project or stop the progress of it by giving this a recommendation of no. It's still going to go to council, you know that, and they're still going to examine all the political avenues of it anyway. I'm not asking you to consider the political. What I'm asking you to consider is more than just what you're hearing from staff, because you're not getting the full picture. And, you know, I'll give you this as my last comment. Here's proof that you're not getting the full picture. How many of you are aware that there is a well 20 feet from this property line? You know why their hands are up? It's because they own the property where the well is. It's 20 feet from where almost 11 acres of land drain into that one spot. Now, I'm not saying you can't figure out what to do with the well. What I'm saying is you weren't aware of it, and you wouldn't have been. That's what I'm saying to you. You can't just think of bare minimums as presented. As Mark rightly said, I don't think he meant it in this way, but as he rightly said, zoning language is interpretive. It's how they are applying it to a particular set of conditions. It isn't a big rule book where you flip open the big book of Bettendorf zoning and start checking boxes. Okay, Mr. Dolan, check, yep, it satisfies the zoning language. I'm sorry. This needs to slow down. It needs to have the kind of analysis that's called out for in the comprehensive plan. And I would ask that you do just that. Either table it or send it forward with your recommendation of no, and let the issues of it be worked out by the electeds. That's my recommendation. I want to thank you for the time.
Thank you. I hate to lose the momentum. Does anybody need a bio break at this point? Or not? Nope, we're good? Okay. If you need to, you know where it is in the back there across the hall. So there were a plethora of things brought up there. Thank you. In particular... Can I speak as well? Sure. Just give me just a minute. Go up to the podium and we'll get you in just a second. I would like, and we'd let Kevin talk for a minute, staff to address some of the things about, in particular, I'd like to hear about feedback on false metrics, floodways and floodplains. I'm looking at the Iowa flood map, and it is not in a floodplain. So I need to be clarified. Apparently, I'm looking at it wrong. Was the senior housing standard the applicable traffic study that was?
Let me answer that one. So if we don't use the 7 for a or the senior living, standard residential single-family lots is approximately 9.5 trips. Again, apparently, Mr. Drain is not going to agree with the IT manual, but it's the industry standard. If we don't have a standard, we can't project out, can't do these analyses. So if you take 9.5 at 26, you're still only at 250 trips. Again, still only half our threshold for requiring a traffic study.
Okay, all right. All right. Well, we're not going to debate the validity of the national standard. That tells me you all think you're smarter than the national standard, which I'm not, and I don't think you are either. I know you live there and feel it, but it's the only thing we got. It's the guideline, and that's our go-to. So that's what we're going to use. So, Kevin, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Dolan, developer for the cottages. The plan that you see here today is the result of nearly 6 months of collaborative work between our team and Bettendorf city staff. From our first concept meeting on, the development team consulted with the Bettendorf city engineer, community development director, and city planner at every step of the way in order to ensure that our proposed development conformed to all relevant city ordinances and plans. And so today we are here presenting a development consisting of 26 single-family, semi-attached homes on 5.5 acres. At 4.7 units per acre, this is less than 1/3 of the allowable density for that site. With the current zoning, any other developer could come in and put roughly 80, maybe as many as 100, 3-story townhomes, just like what you see up near the roundabout on Middle Road. But what we intend to build are 26 single-story ranch-style villas targeted towards seniors and built for owner-occupants. We intend to incorporate architectural themes like brick and masonry from the historic neighborhood to maintain the character of the community. The grounds will be maintained by a homeowners association to ensure a consistent appearance. As part of the developing the site, we also pledge to maintain as many of the existing trees as possible to enhance the landscaping on the property. We're going to add sidewalks not only to the cul-de-sac interior to the site, but also to the perimeter as well, which will increase the walkability both for our residents and for anyone else living in that part of the city. We expect these villas to have a purchase price in the mid-$400,000 range. This is greater than the average sale price of the adjacent neighborhood, meaning it will have a beneficial impact on property values. This will be a Class A pocket subdivision. Our proposed development is consistent with the city's comprehensive land use plan, the city's zoning ordinance, and has been recommended for approval by Bettendorf city staff. We have developed this type of subdivision and built this type of senior-oriented villa all over the Quad Cities and, in fact, all over eastern Iowa. And we have found that there's a tremendous need for this product, particularly in infill areas. Many times the majority of our customers come from the adjacent older neighborhoods, and that's because we're building housing that allows for seniors to successfully age in place. They love their neighborhood. They want to keep their same neighbors. They want to keep their same church and doctors and go to the same corner coffee shop. But so many of those older homes that they live in were not built for accessibility. The laundry's in the basement, the bedrooms are upstairs, and so they have to move. And the question is, where do they go? It is vital that Bettendorf allows and encourages this type of housing in order to keep our seniors. Housing oriented towards seniors is a public good. These are low-impact users of city services and city roads. Seniors pay property taxes for public schools that they don't ever use. The benefit to school districts is so great, in fact, that in other cities, we've been offered incentives by community school districts to come in and put this type of housing. Now, I understand some of the neighbors are opposed to this development. Change is always difficult. That's to be expected. But we value our collaborative working relationship with the city and have done our best to make concessions in order to be a good neighbor. When we first presented this development, there were 39 homes, and it included a connection to Crestline Drive in the southwest corner. The neighbors expressed significant concern about the number of new homes going in, the density, as well as fears about traffic being routed through the existing neighborhood. So we went back to the drawing board. We reduced the density. We reduced the total number of units by 1/3. We eliminated the connection to Crestline Drive. The next concern we heard was about stormwater and drainage. And I am not a civil engineer. Our engineer, Mike Janisek, can talk more about the specific plan. But as we heard this evening, I know as it stands today, there is a tremendous amount of stormwater that flows right through this site onto the manor directly below. And that's because currently there is absolutely no stormwater detention taking place. Right now, when there's a massive rainfall, and we get those supposedly 100-year storms every few years, all that water flows right down to the manor, and I understand it has caused considerable damage. We are going to fix that. We are going to change it. At our sole expense, we are going to build a stormwater detention system that will detain those 100-year storms on site and release it into the stormwater system, into a pipe, at a 2-year rate, preventing it from reaching the manor. We are going to greatly improve the stormwater situation in this part of the city. As it relates to the possibility of a protected stream or wetland, we took the rather unprecedented step of meeting with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to ensure that they had no concerns with our development. We've also heard concerns about traffic and safety as it relates to this subdivision. But here again, there are requirements and ordinances in place to ensure safe development, not just by us, by any developer. The city staff, the city engineer, the fire chief, they review these plans to ensure the development has been designed to comply with the technical safety details, not subjective opinions, but objective measures. The distance of the entrance to the intersection, the radius of turns and the slope and the width of roads, the length, diameter, number of units on a cul-de-sac, placement of fire hydrants. These are objective safety measures that we have met. We've done our best as a development team to work with the city and to listen to the community in order to make this the very best possible development it can be. And I understand we can't make everyone happy. But the fact of the matter is we're all playing by the same rules here. The same comprehensive land use plan and zoning ordinance that protects individual landowners from certain land uses being developed adjacent to them also guarantees landowners the right to use their land in a manner consistent with the approved zoning ordinance. That's the deal. And that's the matter before this commission tonight. This development is consistent with the City of Bettendorf Comprehensive Land Use Plan. It's consistent with the approved zoning ordinance. It has been recommended for approval by city staff, and I would ask that this commission recommend the development for approval as well, and I'm happy to take any further questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. And I would just say, from the last presentation, which I also appreciate, it's pretty clear to me that this has not been pushed through. It's been worked on for 6 months. So it is a misstatement from my perspective to say this has been pushed through. This has not been pushed through. This has been worked on for 6 months diligently by all parties involved. So no misconception. This is not being pushed through and not being dealt with in a very detailed manner. So, all right. Yes, ma'am, behind you, Kevin. There's a lady there. And if there's questions, just state the question to me, and Kevin can address it if it's to Kevin, or if you just want to go ahead and make comments directly to us, that's fine too, as far as general comments.
This is just a general.
Okay.
So I've been standing here. I'm an industrial engineer by training.
Can you tell us who you are?
Oh, I'm sorry. Paula Teal, 39 Riverview Park Drive.
Thank you.
And you're talking about all your standards and, you know, you have to meet this and you have to meet that. Standards don't mean anything unless you have data. You cannot get data unless you do a study. So you may be sitting here saying that the standard says you can have 7 or whatever. You don't know how many cars, what the activity is in that area because you didn't do a study because the standard said you didn't have to. What I'm saying as a citizen with a project like this, due to safety reasons alone, you owe the community to spend the money to do a traffic study. You can't call out a standard if you don't have any data to compare it to and you have no data.
Ma'am, the standard is a national standard that's
I
based
don't
off
care.
studies across the
I don't
country.
care. No, excuse me. You have nothing to compare it to. You have no data.
No, that
No.
is not the point. The study.
No, but that's my point.
Okay. That is not the point that I'm arguing. ma'am.
I don't care, honestly.
Thank you.
This is my time to talk. Okay. So you have no data. You need data to make a rational decision on that. The other concern that I have is in their letter that they sent to the board, or whatever, that this is part of the comprehensive plan goal D, provide housing options and reinvest in existing neighborhoods. So my concern here is that if this is considered as reinvesting in my neighborhood, I would much rather have my roads fixed than have a bunch of houses put in my backyard. I'm not against development. There are plenty of other areas in the area, just north of here, where the Hobby Lobby used to be, where there's this big old flat cement slab. Put stuff there. That's an eyesore to the community. This area is beautiful. It enhances the neighborhood. Don't destroy that. My other concern is that this senior living thing that he's talking about, so there are 26,861 adults in Bettendorf. This is based on 2020 data. 5,731 of them are seniors. So that's only 21% of our population are seniors. I would like to know, I would like the data that he is using to say that there are seniors that can afford a $400,000 plus house. Because it ain't.
Smile about it, 'cause they think it's funny.
Yeah, because it ain't gonna happen.
Maybe their mom and dad have.
Yeah.
you gotta-
So
Right.
I
Yeah.
just,
Stop that.
Yeah.
the
Well,
other
hey,
thing, oh, I'm sorry.
More talking in between. She's got her time, and you can't engage the audience. You're talking to us, okay?
So the other thing that,
Look, no
other-
more comments. We ask you to leave. We've got a decorum, and you need to follow it. Everybody needs to follow it, and if you don't want to play by the rules, then I'm going to ask you to leave. Is that a problem? Okay.
the other item that I wanted to bring up too was the stormwater. That is a huge thing. I just believe, and I'm not against development, don't get me wrong. He wants to build a development, put half the amount of houses that are in there. I believe that the water quality, stormwater issue is a major issue across the United States. I believe that the city should look into doing more greenscaping. Here, I got to get at they're called low-impact developments that take into effect that we don't detain all of our water and then dump it out later. We use the natural filtration system of the earth. And then the water is filtered naturally. And I really think the city needs to look into that because that seems to be a trend here. We're just taking all our stormwater and dumping it in detention ponds, and we're covering up all the area with concrete so that water has nowhere to go and natural filtration cannot take place. So.
Thank you. Okay, who's next? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jane Reidenhauer. I live at 1611 Kofelt Avenue in Davenport. And the property is, we're the only one that has a gate to that back area. We live on the dead end of Crestline Drive. My drive is on Crestline Drive, the driveway. 5 years ago, they came and did, I don't know whether it was Davenport, city of Davenport, or the city of Bettendorf, and they put all this rock at the dead end because there's nothing under the road back there. Nothing. And now, suddenly, 5 years later, it's disappeared. And there is a spot in our driveway that has sunk. Do we have any concrete proof that this isn't a sinkhole? I don't know. I've wondered, and I thought, everything is eroded down. Now, I know that Bettendorf plows our street. They plow Kofelt, and then they come around to the dead end, and they bring all the snow down the dead end. That's fine, but that's water. And I just don't know. I just wonder if the whole building will sink, if our property will sink, because that little spot in my driveway tells me something's going on underneath. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, who's next? See a hand in the back, okay.
Good evening. My name is Jill Main. I live at 3327 Middle Road, on the corner of Broadlawn and Middle. The only thing that I want to bring up is something that has not been addressed tonight. How and why has Dolan chose to call this McClellan Cottages, and they have McClellan Court as the drive, when McClellan Heights is in East Davenport? It's a very charming area full of large houses. It tends to be more of a richer neighborhood. And if it's not for profit to take the name and apply it to this area of Bettendorf, then why? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else in the audience? Yes, sir.
I have a quick one. Caleb Stebbins, I live in the Manor. This probably doesn't even have to, it's probably not really a question to the Dolans, but we already have like a huge issue with the snow. When we get big snow, they plow it straight onto that median on Kimberly, which blocks our view to turn into the Manor. So I want to know where the snow is going to go from their place. I mean, where are they going to take that? Are they just going to take it out to Kimberly? Are they going to take it through the residence, or where is that going to end up? That's
Okay.
kind of what I had. I just think it's an issue.
All right, thanks. Brent, where's the snow gonna go?
All the snow will stay in the street, so it'll get windrowed, just like a normal residential subdivision, onto the adjacent properties. Nothing will be hauled off or moved off-site.
Will it be off street or on street where the parking?
Yes. We'll have to evaluate the cul-de-sac. I'll have to talk with our operations group. That could be the only place that may not have on-street winter because of the density of the driveways. The rest of the McClellan Court will have on-street parking.
Okay, who else from the audience, please? Yes, sir.
Oh, my name is Kirk Van de Kar. I live at 1646 Broadlawn. I'm right across the street from Sean Liddell, and his backyard looks on across to the proposed development. I just have one little thing here. Earlier, there was discussion about this, the ravine being wetland and not being designated as a flood area, but I had an experience a few months ago where the mortgage that I pay into every month has mortgage insurance, and I've built up my equity enough that they sent me a notice and said, you can apply to have that dropped. So, well, that's $60 less a month that I would have to pay. And so I applied for that, and it turns out they denied me because I'm in a floodplain. It's the FEMA, F-E-M-A. I'm in a designated FEMA
And where's your address?
floodplain.
Where's your address?
1646 Broadlawn.
That's not consistent with national data, though, just so you know.
So I don't know what the deal is, but my house is considered in a floodplain, so do with it what you will.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the audience, please? No? All right, any questions? Yes, sir.
I'll go last. I'm Mark Gray. I'm 1605 Cofeld Avenue. My biggest concern is I have the pool with Haley. It sounds like I might have a retainage wall going in my backyard now. I've never heard that before. I don't know why those details weren't shared with the residents who lived in these homes before. You guys have heard, I'm not going to go over all the concerns that everyone said. I think the only thing that I haven't heard is all the noise pollution that we are going to be suffering through for years, the bulldozers, the excavators. We're going to have to live here and listen to this People don't move into this neighborhood to see detention ponds and see trees knocked down. It's Mississippi Heights, I think, not McClellan Heights, but we have trees, we don't have detention ponds, so this development does not fit into the characteristic of our neighborhood, first of all. And the last thing I want to say is the young lady in the blue asked the city staff, why did that street not go through? First of all, the city of Davenport wasn't going to pass this project. They had serious concerns about the topography, and then they also felt like the land was going to have better use than jamming all these homes through, so they weren't very truthful with that comment. I just wanted to let that be known. And I just hope you guys see all the support here, that you guys do the right thing and vote this down.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else in the audience? Nope. Anyone with staff? Oh, yep, go ahead.
I know I've already spoken, but
I got to get you back on the mic.
I'm still Gail Hoff, and I still live at the Manor.
You still like it?
Pardon me?
You still like it?
At this moment, yes. Anyway, how many of you in the city staff and the planning commission have walked through that land? If you do, please wear your hip boots because it's very marshy. Please be aware that there are lots of bushes and branches and logs to climb over. And it's not just a parkway that you can walk through and put a house here and put a house there. It's a densely populated, treed area that is full of wildlife, and it's not ready for houses. So check, come and look at it, see what you're talking about building at.
I did go over there. I didn't walk through it, but I did go over there and carefully take a look at all the surrounding area, just so you know. And then, as a matter of practice, I do that in every case we do. So I have been over there and looked at it quite closely, but I did not walk through it. I was more afraid of ticks and things like that than that. But from that perspective, I just say, from everything I've heard from the developer and staff, it sounds like the drainage issue is going to be improved because the through flow of water won't be what it was before. It will be held, and especially if you're in the manor, the amount of water that's coming down through there now will no longer come down there. It sounds like it's going to go in city sewer system. Am I saying that wrong, Brent?
That's correct.
No. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name's Bonnie Stewart, and I live at 1643 Broadlawn Avenue. And my answer to all of this, and I think everyone here would back me up, don't, just don't, Mr. Dolan and your construction company. So that's my answer.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I'll add really quickly. My name is Alexa Florence, and I actually live on Kimberly Ridge Road, which is in Bettendorf. And I will add on that I suggest that you walk across Kimberly Road from Lincoln to the other part of Lincoln that then attaches to Middle Road in Davenport. And I get that Bettendorf news in the actual newspaper every week, and I look at the accidents, and there's never a week that goes by that there aren't 2 or 3 accidents on that corner right there. Every single week that it shows up, and now you're going to add to that S-curve, which is already a disaster to navigate. And I walk across it all the time. We have business on that other side. My children went to school on that other side. We moved from East Davenport to West Bettendorf. So I'm very familiar with that area. People walk back and forth all the time to those restaurants and Brugger's and all that, and it's very difficult to navigate now. And the I-74 bridge isn't even done. You don't know what that's going to do to that Kimberly Road traffic, that crossroad there. And right now, Schnucks and Marshalls are empty. And whenever, hopefully something worthwhile will go back in there, and that's going to increase the traffic on that section too. And I'm sorry, Locust has issues 3 or more times a year where that traffic gets diverted onto that little middle road S-curve. That little, whatever that study was, I get that it is accurate, but is it accurate for an S-curve to what we're emptying out onto, which is a tiny, tiny little street? It's probably not even more than the width of an actual alley, more than a full street. It's something to consider.
All right, thank you. Okay, anyone else in the audience? Okay.
Caleb Stebbins again, Manor. We've talked about like the wildlife and stuff that goes through there. And I don't know if anyone's ever tried to figure out, I mean, we have numerous amounts of deer that walk through that. And when you put this complex in, where are these deer going to go? Are they going to go back into the street and get hit all the time? Or, they're losing their own path to get through safely in that area. I just thought that'd be something to think about.
Yeah, deer actually is a huge issue in town, and they actively hunt them and grant permission to do that in town because of that's true. It's just the reality of it. There's an overpopulation, and they hunt the deer to reduce it. So just reality. Yep, sorry to say. All right, anyone else in the audience with regard to this? Yes, sir. Let's put you over. Nope, I need you over on the mic.
Clarence Hodson's my name. I live at 43 Riverview Park Drive. I moved there in 1956 with my mother and father. So 65 years, I'm 81 years old.
Congratulations.
And this is not a good fit for that property all around this. Not at all. That's all I can say because it's just not good.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, anyone else from the audience? Okay. Anyone else from staff? Nope. I just had my initial comment. I had questions and concerns about, and I'm speaking now to Dan or Kevin, who's over out there, engineer, about the ability to park in the driveway and the configuration of some of the driveways right in front of the garage doors. Can anybody speak to that challenge?
Mike Janisek, Martin and Whitaker. The driveways, the shared driveways will be centered on the property line. There's a few things in there. It's a preliminary plat. Everything's not finalized. The final plat will incorporate, basically the shared driveways will be centered on the drive, and we can look at that to make sure that there's enough room to park outside. It'll definitely work. I mean, we basically have to provide 20 feet. You were talking about the southwest corner lot, 18.
18 was the one that kind of jumped out.
We could definitely, adjust that slightly to go northeast, and it's definitely going to work. Those are very long, and they're wide enough driveways that you could have, if a car's parked there, another one's going to get by it. It's not like a one lane; it's more than one lane width. So it's definitely going to work. The problem areas that you pointed out with, I really don't see there being any issue.
Issue in that's the way it's going to be, or you're going to modify that?
It's going to be something very similar to this, but the shared drives are going to be exactly half on each property line, and there'll be some slight modifications where it goes from the garage to those, and the ones that are not perfectly centered on the property line will get Brent an updated copy. That's really the intent. When we went to go we're working on the final plat now that's due in the near future. And though we're showing the shared easements exactly centered on those property lines, and we made a few adjustments since the preliminary plat was submitted. So we've looked at that and made some improvements.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Yep.
I'd just like to add to that point. I know there's a concern, and there's nobody that's going to be more concerned than we are to make sure that the parking is there. My name's Dan Dolan. My claim to fame is I'm Kevin's dad. So when you look at you could scale those parking areas by the width of the garage, those 22-foot widths on those garages. So we're always going to allow where you can park in front of your garage and not interfere with anybody else. That's critical to having.
And part of the HOA, is that going to be provided snow shoveling, removal of the driveways and such?
Yeah,
It's all included?
That's critical to what we call an age-in-place product. They do sell for the price that we talked about. We have multiple examples. In Stonegate, we put up, I think, 40 of these, and we did have one 26-year-old. He said, "I've been following you. You build a lot of these." He's a John Deere guy, stayed for 3 years, and he made 30 grand. So we don't age restrict, even though it's legal to discriminate against young people. We don't go there. But if you look through our age-in-place neighborhoods, you're going to see the majority are retirees.
I'm just curious, the one lady had mentioned data, and we all love data. In data, we trust, or in God, we trust all those who bring data, as they say. So do you have any, even if it's anecdotal, idea of the percentage in this product, as it's referred to, of the, say, 55 and over client versus not?
I'd be shooting from the hip, so I don't want to do that. But if you wanted to drive through Stonegate or drive through Cabin Crossing, Glengevlin, Northwest Circle, by far, the vast majority are retired, and some, maybe one spouse is still working. So when you put...
has no data.
Pardon?
I think the gentleman in the back needs to take a turn at
Was
the
that
mic.
the same guy?
It's about his turn, right, sir? I think you want to take a turn at the mic, maybe?
Yeah, no, it's all right. I mean, we've tried to hold a decorum here, and we've always got an outlier that thinks they got special rules, and that's not the case. And we don't appreciate it not following the rules. Okay? That does your cause no good, by the way. All right, so, come back
If
to...
there's no
yes.
further questions, I didn't have, I just wanted to
No, appreciate
explain about
that.
the driveways. Thank you.
Got one question. Is there street parking in that cul-de-sac? Like, there's no? No, that's what I mean. Is there parking on the street in there, or are they all going to go into the neighborhood if they have guests and have to park in the neighborhoods? Is that, I mean?
No, so there is on-street parking for the entire length. The only area that might be restricted, yet to be determined, would be the cul-de-sac in winter operations. That's just to be able to clear snow.
I was just wondering.
Yep.
And we don't have, the city does not have snow emergencies, so we may have to post it for the full year round. Now, I will say, if you start looking, and this is something we've looked at for every one of these types of products, we've seen, I mean, this commission's seen 8 to 10 of these similar types of projects as well, in the last few years. Snow removal and parking has been a big issue. We've got situations like this that are much more dense. Like I said, we've got a cul-de-sac on Red Fox Road that I can picture that's same target age range. I would say it's mostly retirees in there. It's even more dense, and there is still some measure of parking, but we do have long stretches in between those. Again, those driveway openings, I believe, Mike, are 20 foot.
Yeah.
So if you figure a 20 foot for a vehicle, you're going to be able to sneak them in at basically all of those green spaces, and then you've got room for, 6 cars on each of those curves. So there's still a substantial amount of open area for on-street parking.
And off-street parking, if I can say, those are long driveways with additional setbacks. So all those driveways have a large amount of car storage on them. So I really don't see it being an issue in the area of the cul-de-sac. And the area outside of the cul-de-sac, like Brent was just saying, there's room for on-street parking. So I definitely do not see it as an issue.
Okay. Yes, sir.
My name is Gordon Siokas. I live at Manor Condominiums. And I have to give Mr. Dolan credit. You build quality homes. I had a Dolan home in Bluegrass, Iowa, and it was quality building. But I see no temptation in the property you're talking about. By the time you take down 2,000 trees, figure out the water drainage problems, it's got to be a challenge that you wouldn't want to undertake. The homes I'm talking about that you've built in the past start out with flat property within the city. I hope the city council will take a look at that eyesore. You said you hadn't gone through it. There's a couple of old homes in there that aren't even taken care of, and it's an eyesore. There's nothing attractive about it, and by the time this Dolan creates it to look like something, it's gonna be a no-win situation for anybody. God bless you guys and do your job.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Sir, I can't tell. Go ahead to the mic.
My name's Bill Matthews. I live on Caulfield next to Haley and Mark. The line is Davenport and Bettendorf right there where I live. And I just wanted to know, you all probably done made up your mind and you're going to say yes, and it's going to go to the city council. And I'm just wondering, once it goes there, are we going to be allowed to vote on it?
No, Chris, can you address the city council process if it goes to city? Well, it will go to city council either way.
Right. Once the Planning and Zoning Commission makes their recommendation, it will go to the city council, and the city council will vote. This is just a recommending body, so the city council is the body that makes the decision on this preliminary plat. Is that your question?
So we don't get to vote on it then?
You you vote for your alderman. Is that what you
Well,
mean?
are we going to?
Well, you can, yeah.
Are we
You'll have
going
to move to Bettendorf to vote for these?
Yeah, are we going to get a list of the people, the way they vote?
You can come to the meeting. It's a public meeting.
Okay, I just want to know so we can, would know who to vote out.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? That might be a good finale. All right. I'll come back to the commission.
I did have a couple questions yet, if that's
All right.
Sorry, everybody, to make this longer. But you had discussed that currently there's cars that, as traffic is, stack from the stoplight, pass through the curve to where some homes' driveways are already blocked. I was just curious, how many cars does that?
So
what's the stacking there?
I'm actually glad you asked that because I've heard it mentioned a couple times that stretch of road was only 40 feet long. There's 160 feet as measured from the end of that curve to the intersection. So it's 4 times as long as what was being stated. It's a 31-foot wide road all the way through there. So that's our city standard for any residential street. So you can get 5 to 6 cars stacked in there. Now, again, they stack on the curve currently, but we're going to stop that because we're going to turn that into a stopped intersection. So if it's stacked east-west, waiting for the signal to turn, the people have to stack in the north-south direction. So for the gentleman who has the driveway that leads onto there, I would hope it would be easier because he'll actually have a gap to get out as opposed to a car sitting in the intersection, which will be illegal now because that'll become a true intersection, not just curve of a road.
Well, I can see just in dimension, and I see people shaking their heads like, no, it's 40 feet, really. Well,
it's
I see a car. Hold on. I see a car, and I see a tractor trailer sitting there, which is probably 70 feet long, and a car 20 feet. There's 90 feet right there, and a big gap, and then another car behind it. So it's it's clearly not 40 feet.
I think that was misunderstood. We meant 40 foot wide there. That S curve through there is super tight, and that traffic, you may be able to get 4 cars stacked there at that light, but that thing wraps all the way down to that corner sometimes. And if I'm coming in from East Kimberly onto Lincoln, or middle there, to come into our driveway, I sometimes have to stop there because of the line of traffic, which then backs the traffic up onto East Kimberly. And that's before the Locust construction. I live there. I know. I can tell you.
I
Your
agree with
traffic study is also not taken into consideration that is used as a a pass-through.
No, sir, I guess I'm not.
Okay, whatever.
No, all I'm saying is I'm not disagreeing with your driveway problem absolutely at all. I'm sure it's the case right now. What I'm trying to explain is that the proposed change will keep people out of that intersection because it's now a stop sign on both sides, which means legally you
Yeah,
can't
but now,
stop
okay,
in
so
the middle.
think about this, really. Think about what you're saying. You think that's a better solution than what's today? Now you're gonna put a stop
Yes.
sign there, and you're gonna be able to fit maybe 3 cars there, and you're gonna get 40-something cars coming out of that drive. You're gonna try to get me coming out of that drive, and you're gonna have 10, 15 cars parked all the way around the corner. So you're gonna have this stop and go scenario with this
Already got
stoplight
it.
all day long. That doesn't make sense at all. That is the dumbest solution I've ever heard in my life.
All right, that's
Okay,
out of line.
okay,
That's
keep
out of line.
it, keep it to the facts and opinion, not the mouthy editorial. No, the stupid comments and things like that. We can leave it out and keep it kind, can't we?
cordial.
Can you do that? You want me to call you stupid?
Our input from your community that's telling you that lives there seems to be not even being.
You're not hearing what I'm saying. Can you state it without using the stupid word and things? And the answer apparently is no. Just be nice. Sit down and be nice, okay? All right.
I mean, your guy is basically.
Sit down. Sit down.
I think it's time, Rich.
You know what?
Rich, I think it's time.
You guys have already made up your mind.
Right, okay.
Let's go, Kelly. We're going.
Yeah, don't.
You got X-ray vision, buddy.
Seven.
He talks again.
All right, it's, officer, anybody's mouth and they take them out.
No,
It's,
you didn't want to go down because there's ticks. All right, this is a freaking valley.
time to go. I'm just asking for civility, period.
You don't have any either, bud.
All right, go ahead, sir.
This is Ann on the phone. I'd like to know if we're at the point where we could call the question.
Yeah, well, I've got one more guy at the podium, and then we're going to do that, Ann.
Thank you.
Phil Shuby, Pinnacle Pines Court. I think that putting a stop sign is just going to back traffic up to that very tight hairpin turn. It's just going to move it back, and it's just going to move it back, and that's a dicey curve as it is today. I don't have a recommendation, but just being there, going through there frequently, and I understand their standards, but to me, I'd ask us to look at it in a little more detail.
Well, I think they have, and my impression is that that's the best solution. I don't disagree with you. I think it will tend to back up at certain times of the day, no doubt. But I think it's better backing up with the stop sign than flowing through and not having the signal or the stop control.
I just think we're
Is that the
creating another
conclusion?
problem at the hairpin
Yeah.
curve.
Yeah, that's the only way to fix that is to bulldoze those 3 or 4 houses through there and go straight through. That's the long-term solution, but nobody wants to do that either. So, all right, we're to the point where we're coming back to the commission, and we're going to ask for a motion.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number 21-050, subject to staff recommendations.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motions?
Yes. I have a quick question for Mr. Gray. Yes. From the aerial view, it looks like you have a really nice manicured lawn.
You can thank Haley for that. So
Good job. What is directly to the east off your property? From that same view, it looks like it is deteriorating. She's shaking her head yes.
It literally drops down 30 feet
But it's
from the back of my
it's-
property where they see.
Deteriorating.
I
though,
don't
right?
want to. Can I say something real
Go
quick?
for it.
Bill's my neighbor, great guy.
Yeah.
I eventually want to replace my fence that's touching his property. As a good neighbor, before I go to build,
Yeah.
I'm going to go to him and say, hey, I'm going to put in a new fence.
Mhm.
Why am I standing here after it's gone through 6 months of great discussion, and now I'm going to get a retaining wall in my backyard? Does that make sense? That's not a good neighbor.
Yeah, I
Can you go
understand your,
ahead, though? Go ahead.
understand
Sorry
your,
to
cons-
I'm ranting.
I understand your concerns. We have to recommend
Yeah.
to the city council, and they like to hear
So I do
our
have
thoughts.
I do have a fence on my back property.
Okay.
That's
I just wanted to confirm that you had deterioration of
significant.
the slope behind you.
Yes.
That's what I
There
needed
was
to know.
also a fire there a couple years ago.
Took the vegetation out?
A little bit. So there's
Okay.
there's a significant ravine right in my backyard and deterioration that I don't know what this retaining wall is going to do now. I don't know if they need to put dirt in my backyard now.
And I'm not sure
yeah.
either. I just
don't know because
I needed
Yeah.
that information to make sure what I was seeing was accurate, because I wasn't going to trespass today when I was out.
But no, you can come out. I got a pool. There's going to be a party Saturday for the Bix. Everyone's
Really?
welcome. So
Okay, there's an invite. All right.
There's
So
going to be
I-
dirt that needs to go in my backyard if this retaining wall is going to go up in my property now, though that might be happening, it sounds like. So.
The fence that was knocked down is already eroding down into the ravine.
Okay.
So that there's like concern there too.
Okay, thank you. Perfect, actually. So I have more comments.
Please.
All right. So this pertains to water, and I'll back up for a minute. A gentleman earlier said win, 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 maybe another win in there. For the number of people out here, each one of you is going to have a different win. Some of you have the same wins, but not everybody does. For those in Slavens Manor, we've seen this with numerous developments where when you have a new development comes in, it takes care of your water problem because it's finally being contained. I anticipate this probably will do the same if they build this for Slavens Manor. It will help. For those of you that are going to probably lose your nice view, you're going to win in the sense that you're probably going to get some sort of, whether it's a retaining wall or other methods that the Dolans are going to use, that's going to stabilize your backyards or your streets. So you may lose one end, but you may win another. Just want to make that point. The traffic study can't be done because it hasn't been built yet. Now, they can look at the cars on that road, but everybody that lives in anywhere knows how that backs up. It's not a secret. We all know that. The one difference is a stop sign. That stop sign, what we've found and seen over the years, is that traffic patterns change when you throw traffic lights and stop signs in. I know the times that I've cut through there, knowing that there's a stop sign going to be there, it slows down the cut through. Now maybe it makes sense to stay out on Locust a little bit longer. So there may be a win there that you're not seeing. I don't know that it will be, but it's possible. Just keep that in mind. Unfortunately, the Slavens Manor parking lot that the few people paid for that really wasn't, it was on somebody else's property. That was a risk you took. It's unfortunate on that.
That was an agreement that was made.
I can't help you with that. The exit, somebody mentioned an exit out onto Kimberly. It sounds logical to go with an exit out on Kimberly. My guess is if it was to be done, Mr. Dolan would have to pay for it. Is that true? To put a stoplight in? Because you'd have to have a stoplight there. Would that, just
Probably
hypothetically?
wouldn't meet the requirements for a stoplight, but you're going to have, again, the left turn conflicts.
Right.
Congestion's one thing. Safety's a whole nother thing.
Right,
You
okay.
can't tell me that a left turn out of there with oncoming traffic coming down that hill is safer than going
Right.
through
Not going to disagree with you.
a traffic signal.
I just want to make the point that somebody's going to have to pay for that, and
Somebody-
ultimately, there would probably, for safety reasons, need a traffic light there at some point. And for Mr. Dolan to do any building in here, he probably would have to take from building the minimum, which he's looking at doing now, to building close to the maximum to pay for the extra added costs. Now, obviously, if he did nothing, most of you would prefer that. I understand that. So I just want to make those points. Let's see. I think that pretty much covers my list of comments I wanted to make sure I made.
Any comments on yours?
I would, is my mic on? I would just have a couple of comments myself. First of all, I
Just a little closer, Joe, just a little closer.
really
Mike, sir.
appreciated the comments that we received tonight. They were all well-intended and come with a level of sincerity that this commission appreciates, and I firmly believe that. I think there's a perception that the city and this commission puts these developments places. We really don't. We react to the demands of industry. There was a request or a proposal that the Aldi store that's being put in, it's been underway, should have been out in North Bettendorf. Well, that's not for us to say. That's industry decides these things where they want to do it. They have the right to petition the commission to put it where they want to put. I think the comments that we received and the letters were helpful. Most of the comments were very constructive. I didn't appreciate some of the comments about the reputation of the Dolans. I think they were one of our premier builders in the community. And I certainly disregarded all of those comments. Many of the comments, and these are very understandable, are about the loss of the trees, and I think there were some comments that, that's sort of my backyard, and I really understand that. When we moved into our home 20 years ago, our lots behind us were all vacant. There were trees, and the kids could play back there, and it was really nice. And then 5 years later, all these homes came in, and we lost sort of our backyard. That's just what we had to deal with. That was just part of the growth of the development, and we're looking back, and it's been a good thing. So I don't know how it's going to play out here. If the city council approves it and it develops into a new subdivision, I hope it will work out well for everyone involved. Certainly there is a demand for this type of housing. The age-in-place housing we are looking at for ourselves. Others, I think, there's a demand for that in this community. So I do support the proposal.
Thank you. All right. Are we ready for a vote? Ann, did you have anything else?
I'd like to have one thing if Ann doesn't have anything to say.
Go ahead.
I do, but in the interest of time, I will support Scott's comments and Joe's comments, and I'm happy to go to a vote.
Lynn was going to make one quick comment, and then we'll do that.
First, let me say I'm so grateful that you all showed up tonight, because it's not easy to get up and talk in front of a group of people. And you did a fantastic job, most of you, of keeping the emotion out of it, because we can't deal with the not in my backyard, the trees and the deer and all of those things. This is Bettendorf, and it's growing like crazy. This is life, right? And these staff members work their backsides off to stay in their lane, to make the best of the situation that they can, because they can't tell people where to go. They can't tell people not to buy it here. They can't. Not in this community is growing. Our property values are growing. People want to come here and send their kids to our schools. That's all good news. Staff does the best they can do, and they stay in the lines that are drawn for them between the codes and the city ordinances. So I'll defend them all day long, and personally a little offended by some of you going after staff. They're doing their job. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to benefit from it. In this case, it could be many more homes. I get that the density could be so much higher. I get that. But I'm not a fan of the be careful what you wish for argument. I'm not. That bothers me a great deal. And another thing that really bothers me, frankly, is that we're looking at a coffee shop in an earlier case across from the high school. Mm-hmm. And we bring up stacking and traffic concerns about that. And we've got a developer who has doubled the stack number. Code only requires him to do 6, he did 12, or 5 and 10, whatever it was. And we set our concerns aside because that fellow had doubled what was required. Code only required 5, he put in 10. We felt better. Mm-hmm. There's nobody going over and above on this development. And somehow that's okay. And I'm not okay with that, to be frank. And I'm getting emotional, and I apologize. It's been a long day. The traffic concerns are really valid. We can't touch the emotion of this, but the traffic concerns are really valid, and I understand the new infrastructure should help the drainage and fix some of these problems, but we're adding more impervious surface. At the same time, we're adding infrastructure. And I'm not an engineer, and I have to have full faith and confidence in Brent when he says that will work. But frankly, as the plan exists now, I don't have full faith and confidence in that I can't stop them, or I can't tell them where to build, and this is going to be something, because this is Bettendorf. It's filling in, it's growing, it's going to be something. But if this exists right now, I don't think it's a good plan, and I don't have full faith and confidence that it's going to address the stormwater and that the traffic won't continue to be a problem. And I think there's a better way to do this, and for that reason, I'll be voting no.
One additional comment, and great, Lynn, and that's what's great about this. You get to hear us debate also and hear these things. The only thing I would maybe disagree with you on is the developer could build a lot more in this spot. So we have to, again, I know, the balance, though, between doing absolutely nothing in this area, which is what I would agree. If I lived in my backyard, I probably would agree with that and want that. But we're looking at the city and the balance. So the developer is building at the minimum, for the most part, nowhere close to the maximum. And that would be the only disagreement I would have with that.
Well, if we must all say something, I'm with Lynn. And I think that overall, things could be done differently that would be of more benefit to the homes around it. I don't think that it's a good plan with the traffic is probably my top one, and then concerns of how it could potentially damage the properties that it abuts to. I don't feel like that was addressed very much. And then I do also think that it really doesn't reinvest anything well in the existing neighborhood as our plan states that it should. So I will also be voting no.
Ann, did you change your mind after hearing that?
I did. You know me well, Roy. Thank you.
We've worked together for a lot of years, so yeah, please do.
Yeah. So I'm just going to comment on a few things. I've been on this commission for almost 20 years, worked with different staff, and I find them to be very trustworthy. I've heard some comments tonight. I agree with what Lynn said. That was concerning to me. I heard a lot of their expert opinions referred to as nonsense, which I took exception to. I trust our city engineer's expertise and his analysis of the traffic, and I also feel confident that if somehow a traffic problem is created in the future, that the city will endeavor to fix it. Roy, you and I were both involved in creating the comprehensive plan. In fact, this is the second comprehensive plan that I worked on. So I feel pretty confident that we're dealing with a case that has not asked for a change in the plan. So we are following the plan. We're not being asked for any vote related to zoning. Chris has been very clear in helping us see that we're dealing with a project that complies with the zoning. What we're voting on right now, tonight, is a plat. And I feel like we're following the comprehensive plan, we're following the zoning. I trust the staff. I know that all of the people who took the time to come and gave very impassioned opinions tonight will have an opportunity to share those opinions with the city staff in the future. But I feel like this evening I'm being asked to vote on a plat, and I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. We are ready for a vote then. Should we do this by roll call, just to make it clear?
Adam,
Yes.
Gibson,
No.
Kepler,
Yes.
Wormsby, no. Stoltenberg,
Yes.
Wenland,
Yes. 4-2.
Did you get Ann?
And I'll just say, in general, the plan had a little concern on the south end, but I think staff did address the issues, and I'm pretty well in alignment with Ann's comments that it does meet the comprehensive plan. It is in the context of the neighborhood. I think ultimately there's going to be a lot of improvement in drainage. I would hate to lose the trees. I had a beautiful backyard, and it's now all houses and dirt and things it wasn't before, and I don't like it as well either. But as noted, that's what happens when somebody else owns the property adjacent to you. This is subject to approval by the city council. We are, again, a recommending body, and that will be going to the city council when, Chris or Mark?
It's Committee of the Whole, August 2nd and 3rd. Double check me on my dates, guys. Second and third. Committee of the Whole, August 2nd, City Council, August 3rd. Two separate actions, but it will be on both agendas.
All right, and just for the record,
Yeah,
it
public
was
comment would only be on the 3rd, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
recommended for approval 4-2. Okay. That brings us to staff updates.
I think we are good for this evening, Mr.
I
Chairman.
would thank you for that. All right, we stand adjourned.